Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
A very good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Evolution Sim Racing, where tonight we host round 2 of our GT4 TCR multi-class sprint series here at the wonderful Road America circuit, just a short drive west of Lake Michigan in the US state of Wisconsin. A track distance tonight of 6.5 kilometers, consisting of 14 corners, notably that technical Turn 9 carousel, as well as the scenic run through the trees at the back section of the racing circuit. My name is Joseph Glass, and as always, it's my pleasure to be joined alongside Mr. Dara Thacker in the commentary box tonight as we look ahead to what will be 3 short and snappy sprint races this evening, which, hopefully, Dara, will be slightly more sensible than what we found in the opening exchanges this time last week.
Some of these instances, if you're going to send it down the inside, maybe down towards Canada corner towards the end of the lap, and thinking about snatching a P10, is it going to be worth it if the top 15 are going to get reversed? If it goes wrong, you're going to find yourself at the back of the field, and we saw how difficult it was last week to fight your way back through some TCRs if you're a GT4, but this is looking like it's going to be a great evening. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the guys will be a little bit more familiar with the machinery, for example, and as we said, there's a lot of new names and a lot of new faces. We've had a little bit of a shake up in the background to try and give these drivers a little bit more help in picking out who they are battling, try and avoid anything out of class. And obviously it's easy to pick out who's in a GT4 and who's in a TCR. And I think this sort of circuit offers a little bit more room, not that much more room, but I think a bit more space, a bit of a wider track and a bit more runoff than what we had at Zolder last week.
Yeah, I think Zolder it's a very particular circuit, very much old school. This is more old school, but in the American sense, a little bit wider. Straights are a little bit longer. They aren't the straightest of straights, but at the same time, there's enough runoff area on the outside, and the walls, will give you a little bit more leeway in terms of how you can race, rather than where we were at Zolder last week. It's also going to be different when we get to Virginia again next week, because walls are a little bit closer once again, but still wide open green space is going to be exciting.
Absolutely, mate. So let's take a look, as always, at the formalities before we head down to trackside. The drivers have about 10 minutes to go, and this week, though, we have some standings to run through after the first round, so we can take a look at who's taken that early lead in all 4 of our championships. So first up, as always, a quick mention to our sponsors, Kame, who provide the season trophies to all of our drivers participating in the Drivers' Championships and the Teams' Championships. So a big thank you to those guys for giving us the opportunity to do what we do here at ESR. And as always, alongside Kame, we have the GP2 group and Keenan Eco Energy of Hussein Sarkadesla and Chris Keenan. So as always, thank you to those sponsors who've been more or less an ever-present since we started this championship. As Dara alluded to earlier, we head off to Virginia for the full course in some questionable weather this time next week for the first of our endurance rounds. Not quite endurance, we're thinking about the Daytona 24 that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, but endurance in terms of this championship. 1 flat-out 15-minute sprint, followed by the longest session that we'll have all season in that 45-minute race. We're here at Road America tonight, though. We rounded off Zolder last week, so it's the last of the dry running, potentially, for these drivers before we head to Virginia for round 3. A first look then at the championship order, and we start first with the GT4 Pro class. Ben Smith for Ignium Motorsports got himself off on the best front foot, almost the best front foot that he could. He got himself a P2 and then a race victory in the feature around Zolder last week, and that puts him 14 points narrowly ahead of Yannis Olber in the Glasstec DXT partnership team there. The German driver, one of the highest I-rating drivers that we have on the grid, over 6,000 I-rating for Yannis, so definitely an experienced guy to have on track. He's, however, only 1 point ahead of Thomas Pugh for Access Sim Sports Red, who got some nice consistent results last week, 2 P3s, 2 podiums, but just ever so slightly pipped there by Yannis, just by that 1 point. Gap slightly opens up down toward P4. Adam Atherton, a debutant here at ESR for Ignium Spark. He sits on 69 points, 11 points off the top 3. Remember, only top 3 drivers this season getting their hands on the driver trophies, so we don't have a big number of on offer this season compared to last. Next up, it's William Humphrey again, just 1 point behind for the Glasstec DXT team. He's also in the Porsche. He got off to a flying start, did exactly what he needed to do, ran away with it in the opening race, however, had that issue on possibly the opening lap, if not the first few laps we saw. At the exit of turn 2 and 3 there, he went careering off into the barrier, and that ended up in him finishing down there in a lonely little 10th place. So we brought him some points, but not the kind of points that we've seen him score over the last season and a bit. Another debutant, Jacob Bonner, sits in P6 for one of the new teams on the grid. That's KXR Racing, 57 points for Jacob. He's ahead of the next 2 drivers, JSD Racing partnership of Joe Sparrow and Stephen Donnelly. Those 2 are more than familiar, having spent a lot of time with ESR, and they'll be keen to try and put their mark down in this pro division. I think the first time for either of these drivers to be right at the front of the grid. Jeremy Ullerman's next, nearly rounding out the top 10. He's on 39 points out of Jeff Hibbard, who rounds off the top 10 again, just 4 points behind Jeremy. And Marius Hibmer in the Aston Martin, I think one of the first drivers in the Aston Martin. He's for Flatline Racing, the Danish driver, should I say. And then we round off there with Francois Brandet. Not the result that he wanted in the first race. I think he had some issues. I think he hit the barrier toward the start of that first race. Managed to stay around though and recovered up into P8 in the end.
Yeah, it's a decent enough result for Francois after it was very difficult to see him come all the way through that field of TCRs, but he had to come through some of the AM drivers as well, and it's been a decent start to the championship in the AM category for the GT4s because it's stayed pretty close at the top. It's Niels Kula and Robin Earl Brown who are both at the top of the order. 2 wins and 2 third places, 1 apiece to each of them, and they're going to be fighting it out today to see who can claim a championship advantage. Liam Fraser kept them pretty close though, and the Moonshiner Racing Club driver picked up a 2nd place in the second race, which was critical to keep himself in the running. For everybody else, it was a little bit difficult to pick up some of the big points. John Ludbrook, a good example of that. A P2 in the opening race in his Kame GP2 car, but unable to really replicate that in race number 2, finishing down in P11 and dropping quite a chunk of points to his teammate Robin L. Brown and the others in that title race. There were a few drivers, though, that kind of bookmarked themselves in the midfield. Matt Stace was absolutely one of those. A 5th and a 7th place in the opening round keeps himself at the front of that mid-pack, but he's also joined by Luke Bailey with an 8th and a 4th. A lot of these guys almost swapping positions between the races. No less Charlie Stottard, 7th and 6th, and Edouard Grobe, 9th and 5th. All of these guys split by barely anything, 6 points coming into the second round. Daniel Paul got another good couple of finishes as well. 6th and 9th sees him rise over that 50 mark point after the opening round of the season. Klaas Vellen, the German driver, just running out the top 10, keeping himself in there after a good result in the second race. He was just about able to beat Brandon Smith, the American in the McLaren, who finished down in P10. First P10 of the season. We'll see what Browning can do tonight. And then Dean Sheesby, who was unlucky in the second race not to finish a P10, got him 18 points though, and we'll see what he can do from P12 tonight.
There we go then. Plenty of people on offer there in the top, well, not the top division, but our top paced class, the GT4s. And now, though, let's take a look at the pro class for the TCRs. Slightly slower machinery, but the quality is all the same. It's Logan McKenzie who leads at the front. A nice round 100 points, having the perfect start to his championship. We spoke to him at the end of the session last week. And again, look at that 7,000 I rating, challenging Yanis there. And I was wrong to say that Yanis had the most I rating, actually, because it's Logan. He is the American driver for Team Shelter. And I must say, great start by the top three at the moment. You can see there, 2 P1s, 2 P2s, and 2 P3s. And then look at that, 2 P4s and 2 P5s. You were right, Dara. The top 5 was the same that we saw at the end of the session. I've just remembered that you made that point last week. So it's Jaden Scotton in P2 for Flatline Racing Green, the British driver ahead of Jay Corley. So a good start for Team Shelter. 2 drivers up in the top 3 after just 2 races. Alak Anenya is next. He's the privateer, and I'm not sure what he is. He's in the Honda, actually. And again, just shy, just 8 points off the back of Mr. Jay Corley there. Keith Calhoun, another debutant. 4 of the top 5 ESR debutants. So they're really making their mark. He's on 66 points, just 6 points away from Alok at the moment. Max Devanchani, he's a familiar face in the TCR Championships. He was with us 2 seasons ago when we did our sole TCR run, and he had a break during the GT4s last season, but is back in his Honda for Flatline Racing Green. This time, the Portuguese driver on 51 points from the opening round. James Howarth next. He took a promotion from the AM class, and he's first of our DXT Motorsports there in the PG Tips DXT livery. A P6 and a P9 for James last week. I'm sure he'll be quite happy being in and around the top 5, but that P9 definitely will not be where he wants to find himself. Scott Malcolm next. He's another debutant for Ignium Blaze, a new team to the championship. P10 and a P6 for Scott this time last week. And again, we spoke to him at the end of the session. It's always good to see some of these new faces getting involved in all aspects, not just the racing, but also coming to speak to us after the race as well. Kevin Marshley, he's next up in the Audi, another privateer driver, just 3 points off the back, 6 points off the top 7. Definitely lots on offer for these guys tonight, with 3 opportunities to get themselves a win here tonight. Anthony Hilton is next up. You can see that the Team Shelter have 3 drivers on the sheet at the moment. 3 drivers in the top 10 of the pro class standings. P9 and a P8 for the second of the 2 American drivers in that team. Sergio Ferreira is next up, but suffered with 2 DNFs, so he's in there by fortune of position rather than any significant points. And then Andrew McKinley there, another example of the same. Did not attend the session last week. He sits on 0 points. Those 2 drivers will find themselves outside of the top 12 by the time next week rolls around, unless they get themselves some good points in the session tonight.
Yeah, going to be critical to pick up points. In the AM class in the TCRs, it's a little bit clearer at the top for Gordon Hales, who leads the way after the first 2 races at Zolder. A win and a P2 for the Ignium Spark driver saw him rise to the top. And even though Steve Rubino won that second race, he didn't quite have enough in race number 1 to keep himself right on the tail of Gordon Hales. 12 points is the gap between the Ignium Spark and the Flat Cap Racing driver. But don't count out Hussein Sarka Desla. P3 and a P5 in the second race after a couple of little mistakes and little moments for the Kame GP2 driver. We'll see what Hussein can do in third today. Andrew Fellows, a podium to kick off the season, sees him up in 4th for Flatline Racing, but he's at the head of a nice little battle in that championship for P4. Jason Haddington is not too far behind, a P3 in the second race, elevated him into the top 5 in the championship, with Rob Smith finding himself in P6, and again a P4 in race number 2 is really what got him to be as close as he is to that top 4. For Ashley Brooks, it was a couple of mid-table finishes, mid-order finishes, 6th and 9th. I'm sure he'll be pleased with that. 51 points on the board and a very respectable full tally from Zolder. Mark Parkhurst in the Audi was in P8. A P4 in the opening race was as good as it got last week. P11 in the second race shows that maybe he's got a little bit more to give than his P8 in the championship would suggest. For Dean Sargent and for David Randalls, they're just on the outside, or just inside the top 10, but just about 42 and 34 points respectively. Decent finishes from them. Let's see if they can get a headline result tonight. Danny Weir didn't finish the opening round last week, and his P6 in race number 2 gets him all 30 of his points, and something similar can be said for Martin Kenyon. No finish in the opening race, a P10 finish in the second race as well. We get all of his 18 points. I think he'll be hoping for a little bit more than that as we get our way through Road America tonight.
Well, the practice session has just come to a close, and I've realised that I didn't set up the team's standings in advance. So we'll run over those this time next week, and it probably serves us well because we do not want to miss any of these guys in qualifying. So a nice recap there of what the drivers finished last season as. For anyone who's interested in that, of course, we can have a look at the successful finishes. But that's not what we're here for tonight. We're here for the second round of a brand new championship, and I'm afraid the teams will just have to wait until this time next week. So we do have a couple of drivers making their way out on track at the moment. We can ride on board with the man who didn't have the best start to his championship last season after suffering some mechanical failures, some technical failures. It's Mr. Martin Kenyon. He makes his way around the track in his DXT Motorsports machine, the number 1 driver. That's going to really pain me throughout the season, but that's okay. If he was allowed, then that's fine. He makes his way down toward the first heavy braking zone on the circuit into turn 5, and he's got 9 corners left before he has to set away on his first flying lap, try and get the tyres, the brakes, and himself up to temperature before he sets off on one of his first of 3 qualifying lap times in this closed qualifying session.
Yeah, and I think we will be really running towards the end of that, 10 minutes 35 that we have left in this session, with the lap time being well over 2 minutes here at Road America. By no means a short lap time, and if you wanted to pop away and make yourself a cup of Yorkshire tea, you can probably be back by the time we get our first runs in. But there is Martin Kenyon making his way around the carousel. Oh, that's a bit wide. That's into the gravel. That is not where you want to find yourself. And he's going to be kicking up quite a bit of dust. Maybe a nice little profile picture. Not going to work out well for him in this qualifying session early on. Drivers starting their lap times pretty shortly, but there's going to be a lot of action down there on the circuit, and drivers clamouring to get a good lap in first time around.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that impacts his session, actually, because obviously, I believe outside of the, in a closed qualifying session, the driver tracks are somewhat independent, but such a tricky corner there as the tyres sometimes get a little bit too hot. The amount of traction that you need on that left-hand tyre, with the gravel that he might have just brought back across the circuit, it might make him a little bit tricky for him to get the power down early, to give himself a good run through turn 10, which is so critical, actually. As soon as you get the power down out of turn 8, it's all about blending the throttle pedal and the brake pedal all the way through the kink, all the way down to Canada corner down at turn 12. And if you get that wrong, you can really lose a heap of lap time. So Martin crosses the line then. He's one of the first ones to do so. We have Marius Himber in the Aston Martin, who's also just cut the beam to start his lap. Logan McKinsey, maybe we should ride on board with this man. At the moment, the leader of the championship. And while we're with him, let's ride on board and get a taste of the circuit, a feel for the circuit. The first braking zone through turn 1. Turn 2 is not really a corner here, it's just a little bit of a kink that he's gone through there. Now heavy on the brakes into turn 3. It's a beyond 90-degree corner, and you've got to make sure that your exit's right. You don't want to be stalling the gearbox as you make your approach down through another turn 4. Not really a corner, a little bit of a kink as he passes under the bridge. One of the longest times you've got to think before you slam on the brakes. In a GT4, maybe the 2 marker board. In the TCR, same can be said there. On the 2 board, down the gears, you can really extend the track limits on the right hand side, much more than what Logan did in this instance. Under the bridge for the second time through turn 8. Now this is turn 6. Now through turn 7. What is just a lift, I think, to this corner. You can take a lot of speed, cut the grass on the right hand side ever so slightly. Now through Hurry Downs into turn 8. This is what we were talking about just a little bit earlier on. From this point on, it's all about carrying as much speed as you can through the carousel all the way down through turn 9, 10, 11 and 12. Downshifting into third gear just to let the engine brake in, pull the rest of the car back into the tarmac. Now he gets his foot through the corner. Let's see how he gets on. Is he going to take it flat? Is he going to have to lift? Somebody tells me he might lift for this first lap. A slight lift, not full lift. That was maybe 10-20% off of the throttle there. Straight back on the power, through the gears, into 6th. Again, another heavy braking zone now. Into Canada corner for turn 12. Got to be careful not to run it wide. It's very inviting to let the car slide out here onto the left-hand side. He uses pretty much all of the track available to him there. One of the first uphill braking zones on the circuit. Not exactly a braking zone, just a small dab, a small lift. Now into the final corner of the circuit, turn 14, before the run down toward the start-finish line. Gets a good exit here. It could be a good time to set. So far, only one TCR Pro driver, 3 TCR Pro drivers now, a 2:21.58 to beat. Is he going to do it? Let's watch him across the line.
Yeah, 2:20.1. Can he quite get it? Yes, he can. 20.0. Nearly a 2-minute 19. Fantastic lap there from Logan McKenzie. It did look like he had it all under control. But mind you, a 1.5 gap or so to Sergio Ferreira over a lap this long is quite a tight margin. So McKenzie will be no means safe and will feel like he has to go again and improve on that lap time. And I'm sure he has the ability to do so. We'll keep an eye out for that as he continues on his session. Jay Couley's gone to P8 in the TCR Pros, as we see the likes of Jason Haddington come up to P4 in the TCR AMS. Robin L. Brown goes to third in the GT4 AMS after his good opening couple of races. He's going to be trying to keep tabs to Niels Keulen, no doubt about that. Those two, of course, tied at the top of the championship, both in a Porsche. Let's see who can win out in the qualifying battle. Lots of lap times still to be set, though. We've had about 2/3 of the grid come through to set their opening laps.
Yeah, Edouard Grove there, the first that we've watched cross the line in the GT4 category. He's in the AMS, only a time good enough for P7 there at the moment. William Humphrey was out on circuit as well. He must have made a mistake on his first lap time. Here he is, though, coming around the kink at turn 11 as he heads through that tricky back section of track. That looked very committed, just about keeps it within the track limits. So far, he's carrying a lot of speed down this back section. Let's see him as he heads onto the brakes into one of the final braking zones on the track. Picks up the throttle again, uses all the track available to him. This is looking like a good final sector. We'll see him popping up on the qualifying times in a moment. I'm not sure what went on there. We'll see how his sector times have been thus far. He's set a purple sector 1, purple sector 3, purple sector 5. Let's see how his purple sector, see if he gets a purple sector, sorry, in the 6th. Thomas Pugh has dropped Adam Atherton off the top step at the moment. Marius Himber is next to cross, and is William going to be able to displace him? Yes, he is. 3.5 tenths of a second away from the Aston Martin driver, and that is a mark down for the rest of those drivers with only 4.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, really quality lap there from William Humphrey. Incredible to go a 14.7. Only driver in the 2-minute 14s for the time being. And Marius Hibner is 3.5 tenths back. Really impressive stuff from him. This is going to be Adam Atherton, though. Up to the line, can he improve? He's got 6 tenths to find if he wants to retake pole position. He can find another 10th. It's going to be a 15.3, which will improve him to P3 in the order, but not quite the front row, which I'm sure he was looking for. Noel Brown is another one of the drivers looking to get onto the front row of the grid. Only needs about 0.5 tenth of a second here in the 2.21. Can Noel Brown do? One of the co-championship leaders? Yes, he can. 16 flat will put him up onto the front row for the time being. Niels Keulen will have time to reply, though, and already has that margin to build on.
Yeah, Gordon Hales next to cross the line. He's looking to take that pole position away from Hussein Sarakadeza. Doesn't look like he's done it on this lap. He's got just over 1/10 of a second to find over the Honda driver. Speaking of which, Huss is making his way around for his final lap as well. So let's ride on board for a short while with Mr. Hales as he looks to dislodge the Turk off the top step. It's the number 8 against the number 17, and it's not much separating them two at the moment. Logan McKenzie still hangs on to that place at the front of the TCR Pro category, and he's nearly half a second clear of Sergio Ferreira, so that's a huge mountain to overcome. Something tells me they might not be able to dislodge him from that position come the end of qualifying.
Yeah, really impressive from him so far in this session, and statement made very clearly towards the start of this season. Still in the early stages of what is going to be hopefully a 10-round thriller all the way into March. But these kind of statements early on will, of course, be important for confidence, no less, going throughout the early stages of the season. Fraser, I believe, has just moved it up into P2 in the GT4 category onto the front row. So we saw an improvement from Yannis Albert to go up into P3 in the GT4 Pros. Meanwhile, William Humphrey, he's still the only driver in the 2-minute 14s. He's to a 2-minute 14.4. Incredible. He's got nearly 7/10 on the rest of the field now. He's just going faster and faster. And who can really catch him at this point?
Yeah, well, we might see a similar sight of what we saw last week when he gets away from pole position nicely and really begins to lead the race. And obviously, he had that mistake in the second round last week, but that is unlike Will. We saw him performing very well in the Mercedes last season, and now that he's in the clearly favourable machinery in that GT4 Porsche, something tells me with qualifying times like this, he might be tough to beat this season. Not too many drivers left. We've got Kevin Marshley, Kevin Calhoun, and Edward Grobe here, who's coming around the final sets of corners now. A lot of other drivers. Liam Fraser is a little bit behind the order, which is good news for us, even though there's only a minute and a half left to go. Charles Wimbley, the same. He is only just about to go halfway through his second lap time. A second at the moment needs Edward, and he's got just another 10th or so. Moves him up into P5. A pretty decent starting position for him at the moment. He's Liam Fraser, just making his way through the back section of the circuit. Now 3/10 away from Robin Noel Brown, who's the current pole man in the GT4 AM class.
Yeah, great stuff from Robin Noel Brown to get himself ahead of Niels Kooler into the closing stages here. Really important to see the dynamic between those two in the opening stages of tonight. Robin Noel Brown had a great ending to last season in his GT4 challenge. Wasn't here for every single race, but still was a really impressive feature towards the end of the season and carrying that momentum forward into this season 2 of the GT4s here in ESR. So really nice to see. Liam Fraser, though, hoping to kind of ruin that battle between Noel Brown and Niels Kooler. Can he put himself onto the front row? Can he get himself onto pole? Let's see. He crosses the line, and it won't be either. Not an improvement for him. A 16.1 would be another time good enough for P3, but not going to better his fastest time of the session so far.
And here's another driver. Oh, he's lost it there. He was really pushing the limits, and that's the BMW coming backwards. And is he going to be able to bang it in the pit lane? Maybe he's going to try and finish his lap time crossing the line backwards, but that's Charles Wimbley there, who's been unable to improve, and he did sadly set his best sector 1, 2 and 3 times, so he really was on for an improvement. Probably would have only taken him 2 or 3 places higher, however, and the gaps there between William Humphrey and the likes of Wimbley, Jenner and Lauren Denuden down there in the top 15, over 2 seconds, so some real pace differences throughout that pro class at the moment. But that's qualifying concluded, and we can now take a look at the grid ahead of the first round for here at Road America. So starting at the front of the field, once again, it's Mr. William Humphrey, the 398 machine for Glasstec at DXT, a time of a 2:14.424. An absolutely massive half a second ahead of Adam Atherton, who will share the front row of the grid. Marius Hibmer is next up. He's in P3 ahead of Yannis Albert on the second row of the grid. And it's Thomas Pugh with Ben Smith rounding off the top 6. A great start for Robin Noel Brown, the first of our GT4 AM class drivers, who's in P7. But he has shared that with Niels Kooler, who's going to take him all the way to the line. Jeremy Ulemans and Joe Spara round out the top 10 ahead of Liam Fraser, Klaas Vellen, Jeff Hibbert, Edward Grobe and Rob Gregg, the top 15. Luke Bailey, Josh Ostig, Jacob Bonner, Charles Wimbley and John Ludbrook round out the top 20. And as we cycle through, it's Charlie Stothard, Dean Sheesby, Daniel Poole and Matt Stace who are the top 24, with Andrea Muntin the top 25. Jacob Jenner a little bit out of place there in the GT4 Pro category, but he will be starting just ahead of Joseph Preston and Brandon Smith, the top 28. Before we reach the first of our TCR drivers, and that's very nice to see so many of our TCR Pro drivers right next door to one another. Logan McKenzie leads ahead of Jay Corley, who's ahead of the Portuguese driver Sergio Ferreira and Andrew McKinley, the top 32, the top 4 in the TCRs. Jaden Scotton is next with James Howarth and Mike Nagnon, ahead of Anthony Hilton, Branko Kapovic and Kevin Marshley, Scott Malcolm, and then Hussein Sarakates in the top 40, leading the way in the TCR AMS. And then there's a few more names to go through, with Martin Kenyon, Andrew Fellows, Gordon Hales, Max Nevincharny and Keith Calhoun the top 45, Rob Smith, Danny Weir, David Randalls, Jason Haddington, Steve Rubino the top 50. We're not quite there yet. Dean Sargent, Lawrence de Uden well out of position. He's actually a GT4 in amongst the TCR, so watch out for that pace difference as we get underway ahead of the final row of the grid. What is that, row 27 I think, with Dennis Curler and Reese Kitley. That was a lot of effort.
Yeah, I'm worth noting as well that Dennis Curler is another one of the GT4s. He's one of the GT4 AMs. Help from that 20 biddy, who, the AM colours look somewhat similar, but just to make it a little bit easier, GT4 AMs will have the number 2. It'll be 200 and something, and the TCR AMs will just have the 2 numbers, so it'll be 17, 20, whatever it will be. But that's how you can easily tell the difference, and it's going to be interesting to see how those two come through the back of the pack. One of the AMs and one of the pros in the GT4s, Lawrence Denuden and Dennis Curler. Of course, Dennis Curler, another driver who put on some really good performances last season in the GT4s, and definitely not someone you can really forget about. He wasn't here last week, which is why he wasn't right at the sharp end of the championship, but definitely a driver we're going to have to watch out for throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, William Humphrey doing what he needs to do at the moment, just behind the pace car, keeping up nicely, leading the pack. It's him, followed by the Aston Martin and the Mercedes, so 3 manufacturers in the top 3 at the moment of that GT4 Pro class. He's got Thomas Pugh next with Yannis Olber, his teammate there, who is right toward the front of the field. It's a massive pack, 54 cars, relying on everybody to do what they need to do and trying to not leave too much of a gap. We can see Humphrey just dropping off the back of the pace car now and again, spurting up behind him and putting the brakes on, trying to get some brake temperature into those brakes, into his tyres, so that he's got them as optimal as he can ahead of the race start. Obviously, there'll be a lot of cold brakes, a lot of cold tyres at the start of the race, but at least these drivers have a long stretch outside of turn 14 down toward the run at turn 1. A reminder for anybody who hasn't been with us before, our rolling start procedure is slightly different to what you might find in some other leagues, and certainly different to what you will find in the official iRacing event. We'll get the green flag, and it is up to the pole man after the green flag and before the start line to decide when he wants to drop the hammer. So Humphrey can theoretically go about 70 kilometers an hour, about the pace of the safety car, all the way until the start-finish line, if he so chooses. And obviously that will be dependent on the kind of track that we are at. We'll see what he does. If it were me, I'd probably hold them a little bit longer, just to minimise the drag that these guys can get in behind you in what is quite a long pit straight.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a ways down there if drivers are going to have to get down pit lane for any reason. I think they're going to be avoiding that like the plague, but I think they're all focused on the start now. Through the final corner they will come, and this is going to be a really exciting race start. 20 minutes, of course, on the timer, but of course, whatever happens in this race is going to directly impact the grid for race number 2, so it's going to be critical to keep it clean.
It absolutely is. And I'm saying just at the moment, Adam is just edging slightly ahead of Humphrey, so we'll have to drop back into position before we get the green flag. We can see the man up in the bridge there. We're ready to wave the green flag, and we do have red lights, a few eager drivers waiting to go, but Humphrey holding them rightly so, and he has dropped it, and we are green flag racing here in Road America. 54 cars now steaming the way down toward turn 1 as we see a spin in the background already. There's carnage back there in the TCRs. There's a yellow, not sure who that was, out of position, but Humphrey leads the pack nicely through turn 1 He's ahead of Hibmer, then Atherton and Smith, and that's Aubert. He's rounding off the circuit. He's been tagged secondary for good measure there. That's a bit of chaos toward the back of the field, but Humphrey leads them away well, and there's another Mercedes. He's gone off the circuit. That's Adam Atherton, so 2 of the top 5 off in the early stages here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Atherton's mistake was all of his own doing there. No one around him to touch him. And it getting very close once again down in towards turn 5. Klaas Vellum looking to try and find the line, trying to defend as well as they work their way into this tricky braking zone. We've seen many moves made down here. Lap 1 is no different, as they are going to be battling 3 wide in the background. They'll all roll their way through, changing of positions galore. This is Andrew McKinley at the front of the TCRs, and here come all of the TCRs. If you thought we'd seen all of the cars, just you wait. Dennis Curler there in that bright pink Mercedes car, I should say, trying to fight his way through the TCRs, but it is all action early on and more drivers off the road.
Yeah, we're riding on with John Ludbrook at the moment. He's in P7 in the AM class. He does have a car to his inside. He might have just backed out of that, but it's going to be Humphrey who still leads the way toward the front of the field as he heads around turn 9 for the first time, and the drivers now are going to head through this tricky section. They're going to carry as much speed as they can as they head all the way down the back section. You can see some of the differing lines here. Who's got the tyres up to temperature? Who can really get it tucked into that inside curve nicely? Is anybody going to go too wide here? There's a spinning Porsche who's been collected. That's going to cause carnage there, and it absolutely has. Let's see if I can catch up. Oh dear me, that's going to be a huge pile up, and this is not what you like to see.
No, and with the blindness of the corner, no one coming around the corner can see. I mean, there should be yellow flags to alert them of some kind of danger, but no one heeding the warning. If so, people still steaming in. So really unfortunate to see quite a few cars looking a little bit worse for wear now. But
that lone tyre.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Disappearing now off the circuit, but that was quite some shunt. But everybody at the front, they can forget about it because they don't really know that it happened even.
Yeah, I'm not really sure who that was. I'd say at least 20 or so cars made it through there before we saw that. Was it some of the TCRs that triggered that? It did look like they were the ones who got the significance of that brunt. The brunt of that impact, should I say. But yeah, it looks as though the top 20 or so have got through okay. And if we see the gaps, let's see, 20 seconds down to Preston at the moment there. 43 seconds down to Kevin Marshall. I'm not really sure if that's going to give us too much information, to be honest, but nonetheless all of these guys have made it through. But that was one hell of an impact on probably, as you say, Dara, the worst corner for that to happen on the circuit, probably the more likely of all of the corners with the nature of it. But yeah, when you come flying around that corner, 6th gear, maybe 5th gear, and then you get met with a wall of steel, that's not exactly how you want your race to start, is it?
No, as you said, it's one of those corners where it's pretty much flat out, nearly. Drivers trying to commit themselves as much as they can, but it's blind. You cannot see what's on the other side of the wall, so it's always a risk when you go nearly flat out through there, particularly on lap 1 with so many cars on the circuit. It was almost bound to happen. It was just how many people could avoid it. It did look like it was started in the GT4s, which therefore made the ripple effect go all the way through the TCRs, and you can see the effects of that by there being quite a few drivers in the pit lane already in the TCR Pro and AM category, so not looking good for those guys. But the GT4 Pros generally made it through, and you can see how closely packed they are at the front of the field. In the AMs, though, it's Niels Kula trying to defend from Robin Noel Brown as they work their way through Canada Corner. Really nice little battle here as Noel Brown is looking to try and come all the way around the outside. Of course, that's a pro driver just in front, but Robin Noel Brown all the way at the penultimate corner. He's made that one stick, and he's going to make sure it's done at the final turn. What a move from Robin Noel Brown. He's into the lead of the race.
Yeah, great move by Noel Brown. We saw a little flash of the headlights from, I think it was Thomas Pugh perhaps, who thought we need to get past here because you guys are not in our class. But it's Robin Noel Brown and Niels Kula in P5 and P6 in the field. It's Joe Sparrow and Jeremy Ulemans who are behind them, so they'll want to get a move on. Here's Liam Fraser in the orange and black Mercedes for Moonshiners, who's just a little bit off the back of those lead two. We can see on the timing tower now the positions gained and lost. For instance, Max Nevencharny, Dean Sargent, Andrea Mountain, a few notable examples there who have gained some places off the start. James Howard setting the fastest lap time in his class, and Hussein Sarakadesla now with a 7.7 second lead in the TCR AM class, so he probably would have been one of the beneficiaries of that incident that we saw earlier on. And are we going to see 3 wide here? No, we're not. Move up the inside there by Joe Sparrow, perhaps looking to get past Rob and Noel Brown, not in the same class, and these guys should know that this time. You can see clearly marked on the back of everyone's cars are those driver numbers, and also we've done something with the relatives to make sure that these guys can read who is in what class and who they should be fighting and who they shouldn't be. Now, we don't enforce anything like that. You don't have to get out the way, but obviously we don't want to see guys going too aggressive against guys who are not in their race, and that was an oversteer Audi, but he's managed to keep it out the way. I think that was a blue flag. That must have been the blue flag of Kevin Marshall, sir, there, who had a bit of a moment, but managed to keep it away from Joe Sparrow.
Yeah, a bit of a scary moment, though, all the same for these GT4 Pro drivers. I think it's worth noting as well that when it comes to the reverse grids particularly, I think there's going to be a bit of a crossover between the pros and the AMs for that reverse grid pole. So I think the likes of Kudo, Noel Brown and Fraser, they're going to be fighting not just for their own positions, but also to get themselves in that reverse grid. Same will be said in race number 2 this evening. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out. You can see Joe Sparrow being overtaken there by Jeremy in the 315, who's made a very smart move to the inside at Canada corner and moves himself up into P5, and Sparrow, for the time being, doesn't really have an answer already. A few tenths back. Yeah,
the pack in behind Joe here. Ostick, Fraser and Bonner very close behind. Nils Cooler there ahead in that brown Porsche, making it hard there for Robin Noel Brown, as he says, go on then, if you're going to get past me, you've got to go all the way around the outside. He might not need to go around the outside by the time they reach the braking zone at turn 1. He doesn't actually look like he's going to be ahead, so if Ludbrook wants to take the lead, he is going to have to do it the hard way. He sweeps around the outside, late on the brakes. Nils is still there alongside, and this battle will continue down the hill toward turn 3. Who's going to be last on the brace? You can see John was just a little bit earlier there, and Nils has slipped up the inside. How's the run going to be for Robin Noel Brown here out of the corner? Looks like Nils has got that one done for the time being, and it's actually now Jeremy Earlemans who's got another position done here. This is not what John will want to see, as Jeremy puts a car in between him and his class rival early on the brakes as Ludbrook backs out of that one. Earlemans makes a mistake though, far too late, and that will allow Ludbrook back through, and crucially that will allow Sparrow back through, and that will allow Ostick now up the inside as they head into turn 6 under the bridge. Tricky corner. People will have different braking zones for that one. It's not exactly the easiest point to pick out, and that's not the best move that Earlemans has ever done in his life, I don't think.
No, and Ostick will be pleased to be up into P6 now. Oh no, that's a bit of a moment though in front. Was that Noel Brown? It was Noel Brown. Oh, to the racing line, that's not a good position to be in. And he's collected there by, was that Jeff Hibbert? Oh no, it was Rob Gregg, I think, in the 225.
It was one of the gold KXR teams. I think it might have been Jacob. Yes, it was Jacob Bonner, I believe. Unless my eyes deceive me. Could have been Luke also, but I'm pretty sure it was one of them. Is he? Yeah, here he is. He's having a bit of a struggle now, Rob. You can see the damage on that Porsche. It was a good battle to begin with. Only 10 minutes, remember, in these quick sprint races. William Humphrey toward the front. He's doing what he needs to do. 4.7 seconds ahead of Marius Hibmer. But yeah, this pack at the moment between Ludbrook, Gred, Hibbert, just trailing off the back of the pack that we followed earlier. This is the battle for P2 in the GT4 AM class, and this is still heating up as we cross the halfway point of the race.
Yeah, already. It's almost the halfway point of the race. It's crazy when you think about it. We should only have 4 more laps to go. I think William Humphrey crossing the line. 2:14. 4 laps would take him up to... Oh no, we'll have 5 laps. What am I talking about? I think we'll have 5 laps to the end of the race. So still more than enough time for these moves to be made. But when you think about how many overtaking opportunities there are around this circuit, you'd think 2 or 3 clear cut. It's really, what, 10, 15 really clear overtaking opportunities remaining in this race. So time is ticking down on these guys to make some of these moves stick for them, and I think they will know that they need a little bit of a hurry up if they want to get themselves towards the front of the field, not least for John Ludbrook on the back of Rob Gregg as they run their way towards turn number 5. Of course, Luke Bailey just at the front of this train as well. They're lapping some TCRs, which is complicating things, but they're also in the battle for the reverse top 10. Still battling going on though, side by side into turn 5 for P7 and 8 in the pros. Ostick down the inside of Jacob Bonner, and Josh Ostick has that move done again. He's been up and down the order, but this time he's to P7.
They're doing well, these guys, at the moment. It's very tricky. The corner seems to just come at you out of nowhere. And really there, that's Jacob Bonner trying to stiff around the gearbox of the McLaren ahead. These guys all in the same class, remember. Josh Bauer leads them. He's a little bit clear, a little bit further up the road, but good points on off. You can see him just going out of picture there. And the next 4 drivers not to move up the inside there, potentially by Liam Fraser. Thinks better of it. Backs out as they head through the carousel at turn 9, but he might not have to this time because that's Liam and Jacob who went a little bit wide. Now surely these guys aren't going to go side by side through the kink. No, they're not. He backs out, allows Jacob to stay ahead. Liam drops back in. Liam, remember, in the fight in P2 at the moment in the AM class, so not exactly a battle that he wants to get involved in, considering Nils Kuller is so far up the road. Nonetheless, he stepped up the inside and he's got the move done.
Yeah, Bonner trying to keep close tabs with Ostick for the time being. Of course, Bonner's kind of right on the cusp of that reverse top 10. Sense Arcadus leading in the TCR AMs, but of course, with the top 10 reversed in race 1, top 15 will be reversed after race 2 to set the grid for race number 3. But you can see as the lap times come in, actually, that we've got the top 3 pretty, far and away from the rest of the field. Thomas Pugh and Joe Sparrow coming in 4th and 5th, but then comes Niels Kuller, who's right inside that top 6 in the order. Liam Fraser and Jacob Bonner really, rounding out the top 10 at the moment in the overall standings. And for Luke Bailey, you can't really afford to let Liam Fraser get inside that top 10. Could be a massive deficit to try and overcome in race 2 if you're trying to regain some of those points. Although, mind you, Luke Bailey would still start P3 in class. So it could be worse, but I think he definitely likes to be a part of that and feel a little bit safer at the front of the field, as Hussein Salcadessa does at the moment, because he's 7.5 seconds clear of absolutely anybody in his class.
Yeah, he's chasing down the man currently in P4 in the TCR Pros. That's Anthony Hilton at the moment. Ahead of them is Yannis Aubert and Lawrence Deuden in the GT4 Pro class before we reach the top 3 in the TCR. So a little bit of a difficult... Well, we saw Yannis spinning earlier on the, in fact, this corner and the first lap of the race. So he's down the order, currently in P25 overall. These guys in P27 and P28 on the field. Max Nevinciani is the driver behind the pair of these. And Huss, as you said, Dara, has a big gap now, 8 seconds down to Rob Smith. So not too much happening here in the TCRs. That's right on board with James Howarth, who is the closest battle that we have at the moment. This is for P2 in the TCR Pro category, and he's chasing down Jaden Scotton. And this will be interesting with Yannis Aubert bearing down on them. He's missing a rear wing though, so that won't do him any favours through these high speed corners, but he of course does have that straight line speed advantage. Will have more capability on the brakes as well, I'm sure. Let's see how Yannis navigates these guys, particularly through this high speed section.
Yeah, and Yannis is going to be struggling after that. I mean, it was the opening corner spin. It was difficult to tell whether there was any contact with the driver behind or whether he just dropped it on his own. Very difficult to see, definitely. You could see it either way after the incidents that we saw throughout the rest of the opening lap. He's just trying to recover and pick up as many points as he can, really struggling for the time being. But he's ahead of a few drivers, and of course they all start behind him for race number 2. He'll have a fresh rear wing for race 2 as well, so we'll see how he can do there. This is the battle though between Scotton and Hayworth in towards Canada corner. It looks like Scotton's just about going to get the better of James Hayworth, as we've got yet another one of the GT4s coming through. I was also going to mention very quickly that I believe Marius Hipmer and Ben Smith have been exchanging that P2 position, going ahead and behind each other over the last couple of laps. Thomas Pugh, though, not able to get himself back into the battle. In fact, there's some flashing of the lights, so clearly there's a little bit of conflict going on down here as they overtake each other once again. Yeah,
we're keeping our eyes on that just slightly in the timing tower. One of the lead battles that we have on the track at the moment. That's a little bit uncomfortable for the Porsche of Ben Smith, who has to go around the outside the long way. Marius keeps his nose stuck in nicely up the inside in this TCR. I'm not quite sure who this is in the high under. It could be Jason Haddington, potentially. He's going to have to navigate this crucially. Not only is he under blue flags, he's also in the other categories. So it's a bit of a double whammy at the moment. That's the 1-1-3. That's actually Branko Kapovic there, and they get around him nicely and out the way, and he backs out in behind the Porsche. So Marius does retake that place away from Ben Smith, but this is definitely going to continue as these guys head very close through this section. Let's see who gets the run out of the corner. Pretty equally matched, actually, as they head down toward turn 12 at Canada Corner. It would be optimistic for Ben to do anything on the brakes at the moment. He's going to have to just kind of keep picking off him, make sure that he's in those mirrors, and he's got good traction there coming out of the corner uphill. Not exactly the kind of place that you want to make a move. Let's see if he tries to set himself up here on the exit of the final corner to try and make that move stick into turn 1. Just over 4 minutes to go. Not going to be too many more laps for these guys to deal with. William Humphrey has checked out. By the time the race finishes, it will probably be over 10 seconds of a gap, and this is exactly what Ben would have wanted. He's got the run, you can see, and Marius is more than aware of that. Moves over to the inside very early to dictate that corner, and this is smart. Ben is saying, well, I'm going to stay right here until the very last second. He darts back over onto the left-hand side in the hope that the car on the inside will go deep. He hasn't gone deep, but he's managed to keep it stuck in, but he has got the move done, and Ben switches over back to the inside line. Great driving by these two. Clean at the moment, and also very intelligent from the pair of them. Marius to first move over to the inside, and then Ben to squeeze him right until the braking zone to make that stopping distance even harder on the inside line for the Aston Martin.
Yeah, now less than 2 laps for these guys to sort it out between themselves over who's going to take home the 40 points that P2 comes with. So, 45 points, I should say. What am I talking about? 45 points that P2 comes with. P3 gets 40 points. We'll see how they can battle it out over the closing 2 laps. Closing 2 laps just about to begin, though, in this battle between Anthony Hilton and Max Nevinciani in the TCR Pros. They've got is that Hus? I think it is Hus, just in front of them, fighting away in the lead of his TCR AM class. So these two not really concerned about Hussein in terms of their own points for the race. I think they may try and get past for a better starting position for race number 2, but if you're going to be getting offline, as Anthony Hilton did just there, Nevinciani is going to say thank you very much and try and slip up the inside. Turn 3, difficult place to really make a move, and that's a really aggressive line from Anthony Hilton. Says no one's going down the inside, and Nevinciani going to have to find somewhere else to make this one stick. Turn 5 would be the next possible overtaking opportunity, but it just feels like the Portuguese driver is a little bit too far back this time. Yeah,
I think so, and that Audi is in good nick at the moment, but it could all change very quickly, especially if he starts gaining on Sarika Desla, which you would expect him to do. Hus obviously leading in the bottom division at the moment. Last lap time for Sarika Desla was a 2:23.45, and Anthony Hilton was actually 0.3 of a second slower than him. Obviously a little bit of a battle going on with him and Mr. Nevinciani on that lap, but so far the pace doesn't seem all that different between the guys in the top 5 of the pros and the guy leading in that class. Right on board with these guys for a short while, but William Humphrey will soon be starting his final lap of the race. In fact, he could be on that now with only a minute and a half to go. I'll have to double check that as he heads toward the end of the circuit. I do want to flash up these guys though, who are very close on track at the moment. It's John Ludbrook, who is trying to get past Josh Ostick, again out of class, and there's not really going to be an opportunity for John here unless there's a mistake from the drivers ahead. It's Rob Gregg and Luke Bailey who are battling for that final podium place, 2 of the 3 cars that we see ahead of this pack. John hasn't been able to get by in that attempt, but Luke Bailey could definitely do with some helping hand down this straight as Rob Gregg looks to take that position off him. And again, what I think will be the final lap of the race here before we head to the second. Let's quickly take a look at the overall standings and see who is inside that top 10. Luke Bailey just outside. It's Charles Wimbley ahead, and he's gone wide. He's gone deep, and he's handed that position over to Rob Gregg, who will take that podium space in the GT4 AM class. But a quick look there, Dara, at how things stand going into the second race.
Yeah, really good news for the likes of Fraser and Niels Kula, but definitely for Charles Wimbley as well. The only driver I feel safe in saying today in the BMW, indeed he is, looking like he's going to be leading the field to green in just a couple of minutes' time. This is the last lap as the timer ticks away to 0. So really good news for Charles Wimbley. The likes of Jeff Hibbard, Josh Ostick are going to have a long road back to try and gain more points on the rivals, which are the likes of Wimbley and all Ulemans. But no better in this race than William Humphrey. Didn't quite have the race 2 that he wanted last week, but he's making up for it here.
Yeah, here he comes then. He's done everything right so far in the session tonight. Led the way in practice, led the way in qualifying, and a double flash of the headlights by the pair of these guys. William has brought the KXR racing team into ESR, so it will be nice for the pair of those two to cross the line at the same time. But William does what he did last week and starts with maximum points in the first round, and he finishes ahead of Ben Smith and Marius Hibmer to round off the Pro Class podium. It's going to be Nils Kuller, who was right up there inside the top 5 on track. He wins it in the GT4 AMS, ahead of Liam Fraser inside the top 7, and Rob Gregg, who just picked him off there to take that P3 spot in the GT4 AMS. And next up is Adam McKinley, Dara. He's just making his way around the final few corners now.
Yeah, Andrews, stellar job from him. 13.3 seconds ahead of anybody else in the TCRs. Really, really impressive work from the Ignian Blaze driver. The Scotsman will rise up the hill here and take a win in a TCR Pro category that could be really, really crucial. He comes into this race not having raced last week, so no points on the board. He's likely going to have to drop the round. He's making up for it already. 50 points on the board, 1 race done. Can he make it 100 in race number 2? Let's see, because he'll start at the front of the TCRs once again. Yeah,
that's the crucial part that separates these two championships. The guys at the front of the GT4s have to deal with that reverse order, but the TCRs will start exactly where they finish, which I think is quite an interesting dynamic. James Howarth takes the final place on the TCR Pro podium, and then Mr. Hussein Sarakatesla, who did well to lead the majority of that race, the number 8 Turkish driver. He wins once this time for the TCR AMS, and that will be Rob Smith, who's already checked out, and Danny Weir getting himself on the podium. It wasn't so fortunate, I don't think, for Danny last week. He had a DNF in the opening round and then a P6, so he'll be thoroughly satisfied to finish just 1.9 seconds behind P2 and get himself on that podium.
Incredible work from those guys throughout the TCRs to get good points on the board. It's nice to see some of these championship battles developing in all 4 of our categories. Names appearing at the top that we didn't quite see last week that we may see throughout the rest of the season, and reverse grids at the front of the field in the GT4s, which could prove to be pivotal tonight. We saw it with William Humphrey last week, not able to really get the points in race 2 that he got in race 1. Will it be the same tonight? He hopes not, because he's got another reverse grid coming up. He wouldn't mind keeping himself in the top 15 to make sure that he's still involved there.
Absolutely right. And thankfully, Dara, different to last season, we have all the time in the world to go through these standings. So let me prepare those and we can bring you the official standings from that first round. So starting off with the GT4 Pro category then, we have Mr. William Humphrey, who won it in the end for Glass Tech Racing at DXT, nearly 12 seconds ahead of Ben Smith, who finished in P2 for Ignium Motorsport. It's Marius Hibmer, who rounded off the podium ahead of Thomas Pugh and Joe Sparrow there, another top 5 for the JSD Racing 311. Jacob Bonner and Jeremy Ulemans will be the top 7 ahead of Charles Wimbley, Josh Ostick and Jeff Hibbard, the top 10. Yanis Aubert suffered that early incident, drove the rest of the race without that rear wing. Only point good enough for P11 for Mr. Aubert. Lawrence de Uden was also caught up in some dramas. He finished down in P12 ahead of Jacob Jenner and Adam Atherton, all drivers in that class finishing. And crucially, they all finish inside the top 15, and so will all score points in that one.
It will, and all on the lead lap as well, just showing how long of a lap it is, considering that some of them had some real issues off the line. Over in the AM category, though, in our GT4s, it was Niels Kuller who won out in the day, 4 seconds ahead of Liam Fraser and 12 seconds ahead of Rob Gregg. Those top 2 will be in that reverse grid coming right up, and they will look to try and hammer home the advantage that they were able to garner. We had John Ludbrook and Luke Bailey inside the top 5. Robin L. Brown coming into this as one of the championship leaders down in P6 after a couple of mistakes halfway through the race. Dean Sheafby, Daniel Poole, Andre Muntian and Dennis Curler running out the top 10. Of course, Curler coming right from the back of the field to get himself inside that top 10. It was Edward Grove and Joseph Preston inside the top 12. We saw Klaas Vellen, Matt Stace and Brandon Smith on the lead lap. Charlie Stottard was a lap down. Reese Kitley was 2 laps down, but they should be able to pick up their points at the end of that race.
Now on to the TCR Pro category. It was Andrew McKinley who did well, 13.7 seconds clear of his nearest rival. The Scotsman outdoes the British driver for Flatline Racing Green in Jaden Scotton, who I'm sure will be thoroughly satisfied with that top 2 finish. He finished just a tenth ahead of James Howarth. Then it was Max Nevincharney and Anthony Hilton, the top 5, with Logan McKinsey, Sergio Ferreira and Scott Malcolm, the top 8. Mike Nagnon for Belmare and Amibov Motorsports. I've not read that one before. He must have been here last week. He finished 1 lap down, the Canadian driver, ahead of Jay Corley for Team Shelter. Jay slightly out of order there. I'm sure he would be much more optimistic to get a bit of a better finish in race 2. Branko Kubovic, his debut with ESR, ended up in a P11 finish ahead of the last of the point scorers in Kevin Marshall, and then Keith Calhoun unable to finish the race, the 199 American driver for Ignium Motorsports.
And over in the AM category for the TCRs, in the end, it was Hussein Sarakadesla who won out. Rob Smith was 14 seconds back, but he had to hold off the likes of Danny Weir and Gordon Hales, who were by no means out of it. We saw Martin Kenyon and Steve Rubino finish on the lead lap. Those results are slightly skewed, of course, because there's Dean Sargent, David Randalls, Andrew Fellows, and Jason Haddington, who rounded out the top 10, did finish on the lead lap, but just behind our overall race winner. So they were on the lead lap compared to Sarakadesla, but not on the overall lead lap, and that's why they're a lap down. All will pick up points, though, and all will start this race number 2.
And we've got just a quick moment to just go over the top 10, let's say, in the grid, just to see who's out of order a little bit. So it's Charles Wimbley and Jeremy Ullemans who have the job of leading the field down toward turn 1, ahead of Jacob Bonner and Liam Fraser. Joe Sparrow and Niels Kuller ahead of Thomas Pugh, Marius Himber, Ben Smith and William Humphrey there. Rob Gregg, who finished in P11, will start there again. Let's keep our eyes out on the likes of Fraser and Kuller, who have been in that position once before, but are definitely the drivers out of position at the moment. And let's see how Charles gets on and when he drops the hammer to set this race alight. I'll leave this one to you, Dara, as they come around the final few corners. Now the pace car will peel in, and as we said, it will be over to Charles to choose when to drop the hammer after the green flag and before the start-finish line.
Yeah, and the 333 in the BMW leading us to green. He'll wait for the pace car to disappear in front of him before dropping the hammer. But he'll run around the final corner now with a very hungry grid behind him. Of course, some of these drivers on the back end of the top 10 in race number 1 wouldn't mind getting themselves on the podium, maybe even a win in race number 2. The opportunity is there for them. They just have to try and grab it with both hands. Wimbley, they will dictate the pace as they run their way up towards the line, all the way up this very long and relatively steep hill here at Elkhart Lake. The lights are on. When does the hammer drop from Charles Wimbley? I think he's gone. Yes, he has. We're racing for race number 2 here at Road America, and he looks like he's got enough of a jump to control the race down in towards turn number 1. They'll all fly their way through, but all behind Wimbley. The battle for P2 and P5 really is heating up. 3 wide just in the background as they run for P number 4. Did they all make it through the opening corner? We saw Albert go around on the opening turn last time out, but they've all made it through turn number 1. And they will all be able to continue down towards turn number 3. 2 by 2 by 2. Noah's Ark formation in the GT4s before we find the TCRs going side by side. A little bit of contact at the start in these GT4s, and it's Niels Kuller off the road.
Yeah, and the TCRs have done well. There's that one lone GT4. That's Andrea Muntin, I believe. They're the 213 machine. Yes, it is. He is just ahead of the lead TCR drivers. It's Andrew McKinley, who's just been overtaken by Edward Grove. There's some contact there between a GT4 and a TCR as they all get back on the stoppers in toward the heavy downhill braking zone. There's a GT4 car there who's about to make it 4 wide on the inside. He just got caught up there, the number 26, I think that was. Probably can't have been. And that's the car sideways. That's Charlie Stothard, who's around, and he's made contact there by the blue and white Honda, the Ignium Motorsports machine, who's put him right in the right order. But at the moment, it's Charles Wimbley who's done exactly what he needed to do, and he'll be really liking to see Jacob and Jeremy Ullemans scrapping there in the background, making his job easier as he heads around turn 9 for the first time.
Yeah, let's see if he can just maintain this advantage. Bonner.
Oh,
no, he can't. He spun out. He's out of the... Well, he's out of the running. That's for sure. The front end of that car's gone. That's dramatically, catastrophic, really, for Charles Wimbley. It's given Jeremy Ullemans the lead of the race. Jacob Bonner and Joe Sparrow, they were going to be hounding him for that down towards Canada Corner. And this top 3 battle was battling over P2 just a moment ago, now for the lead of the race.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's really heated up, and there's another one. That's Jeremy Ullemans. He's around, and all of a sudden, William Humphrey, he's off the road, but he'll be fancying his chances here. He's got Jacob Bonner and Joe Shapara ahead, and obviously these guys will be looking in their mirrors, not wanting him there. We've got Ben Smith, who's also in this pack. Marius Hibber is having a little bit of a battle here, a little bit of a squabble on the outside line. That's more contact between the Mercedes and the Aston Martin. And who's that? That's Jeff Hibbert, who's right in behind the mirrors of his fellow Mercedes driver as they all come round and pass the checkered flag, well, not the checkered flag, but past the start line for the second time tonight. And wow, it's been one hell of a lap. We've seen a lead change in multiple classes several times, especially toward the back section of that circuit. That's Yannis Aubert around the outside of Hibbert, makes the move stick at the moment. The Mercedes backs out of it nicely, and William Humphrey already being put under pressure by Ben Smith, two of the fastest drivers that we have on track tonight, going toe to toe now down toward turn 5.
Yeah, Ben Smith looking to try and keep his advantage ahead of William Humphrey, but Humphrey, of course, after winning race 1, is on a bit of a high. A little bit of door banging though as they run their way towards turn number 5. It's not the straightest of parts of the racetrack, even though you are flat out down there, but it will be the inside line for Ben Smith, and it will be controlled, and he will stay inside the top 3. Humphrey's got more than enough time to try and recover to the podium, maybe even to the win in the coming minutes. This is Anthony Hilton trying to fight it out in his TCR Pro. There's a GT4 coming through, but he's trying to go down the inside of, I believe that's Hussein Saraka Desla in the lead of the TCR AM category. So those two swap positions on the road. No points gained or lost in that battle though, because they're in different classes.
Yeah, so Jaden Scotton doing well at the moment. He's leading the way in the TCRs. He's in P19 overall, just behind Jeremy Olemans, who is 10th in the pro class, and he's got 2 or 3 cars separating him from Andrew McKinley. And then this is P3 in the TCR pro category. They're all just making their way through turn 9 once again. Let's see, where is Jason? He's got Joseph Preston in the Mercedes there, putting pressure on him. And is Joseph going to make a move? He would be wise, I think, to get it done before they turn in to the kink, which is exactly what he has done, and the Hyundai obliges and lets him through, rightly so. And there's Adam McKinley, who's really going to fancy his chances here, because he's right in behind Jacob Jenner, who's given him a nice little slipstream down the back section. And as long as you can see that Hyundai in his sights, you'll know that there's a potential for a race lead at the moment. Still early doors, 15 minutes to go in the second of 3 races as Adam Atherton steps up the inside of Daniel Poole. 2 GT4 cars slightly out of the order, but nonetheless that's a pro driver against an AM driver at the moment. Nils Culler is potentially going to get past Jeff Hibbert. Yes, he has, as they cross the start finish line. That's a battle for P5 in the AMs and P9 in the pros, but nothing giving between the two drivers, still fighting it out. No one wanting to give anything up, because Yannis Aubert and Robin Noel Brown are just up the road, and both of these drivers want to get past.
Yannis Aubert was recovering from the turn 1 spin in race number 1. He's going to have to come all the way through the field. Niels Kula, though, trying to come back towards the front of the field, of course, in this battle with Robin Noel Brown. Ludbrook isn't minding leading the race in the AM category. He's being hounded by Rob Gregg, though. We'll see how that one continues to develop. Yannis Aubert looking for a move here on Marius Hibmer in his Aston Martin. The outside line is where Aubert will go. Can he get a bit of an up and under? Could he try and use the outside line to his advantage? He's going for the latter, and they're being squeezed by Liam Fraser there in the Moonshiner Racing Club car as they work their way in towards turn number 6. Good move there from Marius Hibmer to get himself a car between himself and Yannis Aubert. Flashing of the lights, it seems, from our AM driver, but it didn't really look like there was anything wrong with that move from where we saw. Oh my!
Here comes Aubert up the inside. Liam will not be pleased with that one, to lose a handful of places in a handful of corners. And just ahead there, I'm not sure if anybody noticed, but we saw Rob Gregg diving up the inside of John Ludbrook, who took the position into turn 5. So there was a change of lead in the GT4 AM class as Gregg leads Ludbrook, leads Fraser, separated by barely anything really, and it's Liam who's getting a little bit frustrated, just entering the picture there in that orange and black Mercedes, who really wants to keep tabs with the 2 drivers ahead of him. But he's got Marius Hibmer and Yannis Aubert for company at the moment. Then it's Nils Kuller and Dennis Curler, and this is really heating up at the moment. Adam Atherton has got past Jacob Jenner for P11 in the pro class, and we're about to see 2 TCR drivers going for it at the moment. I think this is a battle for the pro lead. Yes, it is. Jason Scotton heads up the inside of Andrew McKinley, gets that move done into Canada corner, and we're seeing changes for position, changes for lead everywhere up and down the field. Hussein Sarika Desler is well clear of Rob Smith though, so that should not threaten his position at the moment, but the three leaders within a second of each other at the moment.
Yeah, really good to see how close these battles are. Right at the front of some of these fields, and William Humphrey looking to go back-to-back this evening. Wouldn't mind going back-to-back. It might even may even give himself the championship lead back. Ben Smith is currently leading the championship after race number 1. 22 points of an advantage, and getting to the lead wouldn't quite give William Humphrey enough points to overcome that, but would put him into a great position, not least in terms of his confidence going into race number 3 and to try and make it 3 wins in a row tonight. He's still got to get to the front in race number 2, but he'll back himself to do so, and there he goes, inside line at turn number 6. William Humphrey, he won race 1. It's taken him 8 minutes to get to the front in race 2, but can he pull away yet again?
Yeah, something tells me he will, and Jacob Bonner there, as we said, William got these drivers into the league, so he wouldn't want to do too much to hamper him, and let's see how Jacob behaves now with Ben Smith and Joe Sparrow in behind him. Something tells me that in a couple of laps William Humphrey will have really extended that margin. I want to go back down to this pack, which is really heating up. All these GT4s within a couple of seconds of each other, best part of 8 cars, all sharing a very similar portion of the racetrack, and it's Rob Gregg who leads Liam Fraser, John Ludbrook, Robert Noel Browns, Nils Culler and Dennis Curler from P1 through P6 in the top of the GT4 AM class there. So here's Rob Gregg in the McLaren, and then he's got the Mercedes, 3 Porsches and another Mercedes in behind him. So one mistake from any of these drivers could promote, well, any of them, into the lead of the race. Let's keep our eyes on the timing tower for these guys as things really begin to heat up, and this battle between Jaden Scotton and Annie McKinley is still going, and we could see another change of position in the same corner that we saw it this time last lap.
Yeah, it's been a really frantic battle, isn't it, between these two at the front of the field. Scotton has 3 second places in 3 races to start the season. Andrew McKinley is hoping to make it 4, but Scotton wouldn't mind getting his first win of the season and to put himself into the championship lead for definite. Andrew McKinley, though, back up the inside. That blue, black and white liveried car is looking to try and slither its way up the inside at the final corner. The better exit should be going to Jaden Scotton in his Hyundai, but let's see as they rise up over the crest. They've got a GT4 trying to make its way through, and that'll clear itself well before we get towards turn number 1. Scott will have the outside line, McKinley will have the inside line. McKinley faster on that last lap, but all that matters is the line down in towards turn 1. He's at the outside line that's going to work better for Scott, or will the inside line hold up for McKinley? It'll be the latter, and Andrew McKinley won race number 1. He's in the lead for race number 2.
Yeah, very tight between the two of them, but they kept it nice and in order. No contact made there. Stepped to the outside and couldn't quite make it work. But now, though, he could have a tow down toward turn 5. Let's see him right on board with Mr. Jaden Scott as he looks to challenge Andrew McKinley for the lead of the race. He's just lost it. He could try and get it back, but Andrew's done well to cover off that inside line. Again, a tricky braking zone. He can really open up the corner, can pretty much fully off the racing circuit. He's going to look for the switchback, but he's not going to have the traction. And as they head back up the hill, I think that's going to be Andrew hanging on to this one for a good few corners yet. This battle all over the place, actually, still going on, but notably the front 3 in the pack. You can see William Humphrey there up the road already 2.5 seconds clear of Jacob Bonner. Once that guy gets some fresh air, there's absolutely no stopping him. The guys had to do what they could to defend. Moves over to the inside line, does Mr. Bonner, just puts off Ben Smith ever so slightly, but it's Joe Shapara who's sitting pretty in behind, and he will continue like this, hoping that these 2 cars ahead make a little bit of a meal of themselves and allow him to sneak on through, and that could be exactly this as he sends a late one up the inside, and Shapara could really have the run here as they head down toward the start finish line. Could it be 2 positions lost for Jacob in a matter of corners? Let's see, because Shapara is going to have that tow.
Yeah, and the inside line at turn number 1 as well, which seems to be the favourable one from what we've seen so far this evening. Sparrow then with the tow, with that inside line, will easily cruise up into P3. And will he go back to the racing line for turn 1? Not quite. Bonner may still just about be there. But not anymore, as they get to the exit of the corner, and Jacob Bonner's now going to have to start worrying about Josh Ostick and Thomas Pugh in this battle. A little bit of smoke being kicked up by drivers coming down in towards turn 3. Doesn't look like anybody's off the road still, but there may be a couple of drivers touching the grass on the way down in towards turn 3. Battling as well between Rob Gregg. Rob Gregg's dropping down the order, actually. Liam Fraser's taken the lead in the GT4 AMS, and what's happened to Rob Gregg? He's gone from 1st to 5th, and it's because of this, how close this battle is. This is incredible.
Yeah, well, we saw that the top 6 in both of these categories are all over each other at the moment. When I get a break, I'll try and go back to see what happened with Rob Gregg, but at the moment 6 or 7 of those cars cluster themselves into the braking zone at 5. Around the outside goes the pink BWT Mercedes. Up the inside goes Robin Brown, I think that is. Around the outside, who is that? Is that Dennis Curler? Someone's around, and there's door bumping. They've managed to keep it in a straight line. That is Dennis Curler, who's dropped down the order somewhat, and that's actually Jeff Hibbert and Jeremy Ulemans of the Pro Class who've now got themselves involved in this battle. Luke Bailey is the one trailing, currently in 6th position in the AM class, as they all once again head around the carousel, still bumper to bumper. It's Fraser leads Ludbrook, leads Cooler, and Robin Noel Brown, who we know has the pace, in P4 at the moment.
Yeah, this is a crazy battle at the front of the GT4 AMS. Part of the GT4 AMS, I will quickly mention, I think Reese Kitley is listed as a GT4 AM, but he is in a TCR. Just to avoid any confusion there, we'll have to try and work out where he finished in that TCR class. In race 1, Nils Kula comes down inside of John Ludbrook, so he will get himself up into P2, and Robin L. Brown will find his way through as well. If you can peek through the trees, this is what happened for Liam Fraser. I think this is what with Greg down in towards turn number 3. A little bit of contact, rear left to front right, and that is what sent Greg offline, and that's how quickly you can lose 4 positions, it seems.
Yeah, I'm just going to do that one more time because I didn't have the best angle for that. Let's see. So it's Fraser in behind Greg, just moves over slightly to defend, and then does he just get a little tap on the way into the corner? Yes, he does. Just offsets his run, and those 2 cars think, yep, I'll stick up the inside, and then Nils Kula gets the run as well. So you're totally right there, Dara. The slightest bit of contact when the cars are so close can really damage your race result. He's still in there though, still in with a chance at a podium. In fact, he could be right on the back of it right now. He does have Luke Bailey for company though, and he also has Jeremy Ulemans for company, who's out of class but never scared of a scrap. 5 minutes to go. Humphrey well clear now. 4 seconds the difference. Yannis Aubert, he's about to get past around the outside potentially. Yes, on the outside of Josh. Oh, no, that's Marius Himber actually. This is a battle for P7. He's got himself up, but Marius saying no thank you, I'm going to stick it up the inside. Yannis does well to hold it around the outside, moves back to the racing line and gets that one done nice and easily.
A really impressive move actually from Yannis Aubert. He pretty much lost the position on the inside at turn 5 and then was able to just walk it back around the outside. So really, really good stuff from Aubert inside the top 7. Sarika Dessler is now fighting with one of the pro TCRs, so he's not fighting for any more points, but again leading the way in his class. He is fighting with who I do believe is Anthony Hilton in that 175 car. Yeah, as they run up the hill towards turn 6 and 7. I think it's also interesting to note that with the top 15 being reversed in race 2 for race 3, I believe at the moment that would include that battle at the front of the GT4 AMS, but only those drivers. I think it may cut off even at Dennis Curler, which is how close it could be. Let's see. Yes, so Dennis Curler's on the outside looking in, and he's 2 tenths off the back of that crazy battle, including the likes of Hibbard and Orlemans, who are going to be hoping that they can start a reverse grid pole, but for the time being, that is really in the balance.
Yeah, absolutely right, and it's really tricky for those drivers. He wants to get stuck in, but he knows that those guys are really gunning for that top spot. I don't think, to be honest, Dara, I don't think I've ever seen such a frantic race where for the whole duration, bearing in mind less than 4 minutes to go now, we still see the top. Well, in the pro class in the GT4s, it's separated a little bit. We've got P3, 4 and 5 tooth and nail. We've got 7 and 8 tooth and nail. But those guys from P1 to P5 in the AM class, albeit a couple of guys over a second away, there's still so much that could change. Speaking of which, Rob Gregg has got himself back past Luke Bailey. The gap to Ludbrook now 1.6 seconds, but so much can happen to Marius Himber. Oh no, Marius Himber looked like he just had a brief disconnection there. He did get himself past Yanis Allbear, and Allbear has lost another position down there. That's Liam Fraser, I believe, and Nils Kuller getting involved as well. So two of the current leaders of the AM class mixing it in with the top 8 of the pro class, and with so little time to go, these guys do have to be very careful. Jeremy Olemans, he's round and he's down and out of the race. Into the barrier he goes, and he looks like he's made a mistake heading into the braking zone. Let's see, where did it go wrong for the driver ahead? I'm not sure where he is. Yeah, very late on the brakes, had to take evasive action, and he's ended up in the barrier down there at the runoff at turn 5.
Credit though to Jeremy there for realising that it wasn't going to go very well at all and pretty much bailing out of the corner to avoid contact with others. So fair play to Jeremy there. The disappointment for him is that he will not be involved in that reverse grid and won't be picking up many points, and will actually have a hell of a lot of work to do in the final 20 minutes of today's race. It does mean though that for the time being Dennis Curler is inside that top 15, and he will be the cut-off as it stands. So we'll keep an eye on that as we run our way through. Here is Dennis Curler trying to fight with Rob Gregg as they work their way down in towards kind of the corner. That is actually Jeff Hibbard on the outside in the 375, the GT4 Pro driver, and it will be Dennis Curler, I should say, who is up into another position overall. He's still in P6 in the GT4 AMs, but a little bit safer in that reverse grid for the time being. We're on to our last lap though, Joe.
Yeah, Jeff Hibbard, the pro amongst the AMs at the moment. Someone there peeling up the pit lane. Is that Liam Fraser? Yes, it is. Yanis Allbear is also in the pit lane. I'm not sure what that is about. Hopefully it's not fuel related. Is it incident limit related? We'll have to wait and see. But with only one lap to go, it's a real shame for Allbear, who did so well to recover from that mistake in the first one. It looks as if it's going to be a drive-through. He's going pretty deep into the pit lane. It is a very long pit lane, but I would imagine Yanis is the kind of driver who would get on that right-hand side very early, and that's exactly what it is. Drive-throughs for Allbear and for Liam Fraser, which have really upset that result. Joseph Spara and Thomas Pugh going toe-to-toe in through turn 5. That might allow Jacob Bonner to think about the position up the inside. Yes, he is on the Axis Sim Sports machine. Gets himself up and through. It's not over yet though. He comes over to close out that line. William Humphrey will be making his way. Just crossed over the halfway point of the lap. Josh Ostick is the McLaren toward the back. He still fancies his chances. This is on for the podium on the final lap. 4 cars separated by no more than a second here to take that P3 spot. It's all settling down a little bit at the moment. Hussein well clear of Smith. McKinley pretty much clear of Mackenzie without a big mistake toward the front, and Nils Kuller the same, 2 seconds clear from Ludbrook. So the best battle that we have at the moment are these guys. I'm going to have to cut away shortly as William Humphrey looks to round the final corner, but we could have an opportunity for Pugh to go up the inside of Jacob Bonner, which is exactly what he does. Is Ostick going to be opportunistic? One of them just touches the gravel a little bit there. It's going to be very tricky for Ostick. William Humphrey has rounded the final corner, and there it is. Ostick, opportunistic, gets up and gets the move done. But here he is, the man who had fine form last week, fine form in the first 2 rounds, and William Humphrey crosses the line once again to keep the perfect week going. He takes maximum points in Heat 2 tonight, ahead of Ben Smith, who crosses the line for Ignium Motorsport. And it's Joe Spara in the end, with a frantic battle throughout the entire race for the podium position in that class. He's the one who takes it in the end. And here's Nils Kuller next up.
Yeah, Nils Kuller, a fantastic race for him. He wins yet again, second win of the season for the Latvian driver. John Ludbrook not able to quite get the result he wanted. Dennis Curlis at the fastest lap in that race. P4 in the GT4 rounds. Mind you, he started on the final row of the grid of our 53rd out of 54 in race number 1. I think he's going to be starting on the front row for race number 3. Really, really impressive drive all the way through the field from the Mercedes driver. And I said it at the start, he may not have any points and he may be at the back of the field, but we're going to have to watch out for him, and that's why. Great drive for him. Here comes Andrew McKinley though, TCR Pro, 2 from 2 for him tonight. And yet again it'll be Jaden Scotton waiting for the win. This time though it'll be P3, not his usual P2.
Yeah, great result for the 3 of these guys, McKinley, Mackenzie and Scotton. And it's another great result for Mr. Hussein Sarah Cadesla, who finishes ahead of Rob Smith, who will finish ahead of Gordon Hale. So it's really heating up toward the front of those standings. Gordon Hale's led the championship coming into tonight, but Hussein only had a 17-point margin to overcome, and with 2 P1 finishes, it looks good so far for Mr. Sarah Cadesla. And that's it then. We've got one more race to look at, and it's going to be another dash to the line. These 20-minute races, Dara, really are entertaining. Maybe it's just this circuit, but I think 4 classes really offer something different, which we haven't seen before. So much on offer, so many positions up for grabs, and with only 20 minutes to fight for them, people really feel the need to get a little bit frantic and get the elbows out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also wondering if we can just see the overall... oh, no, it's just going to go. But just to show how many cars we've got, well, the overall tower at the bottom, just to see how many cars we've actually got.
Well,
so that's everybody in the top 42.
Yeah,
exactly.
54.
So, I mean, that's all of the names, and then you've got even more off the bottom. You've got another, third off the bottom there. I mean, it's incredible that we've got so many names, and it's great to see so many guys getting involved. Sorry, I was holding up getting to the results.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. We've got a 5-minute warm-up and the formation lap, so we have absolutely a bucket load of time. And I don't know if I missed his name there, Dara, but I didn't see Curler. I didn't look in the top 15, but I didn't see him in P15, so I'm not sure. I'll have to see if he got himself in there. I'm sure he did, but let's wait and see. So then, let's take a look at the race results for Heat 2 here at Road America. Starting first, as always, with the GT4 Pro Class. William Humphrey continues his splendid night at the front of the field, this time 6.5 seconds clear of Ben Smith in P2. And Joe Sparrow this time on the podium, a top 3 finish in the field for Joe for the JSD Racing team, ahead of Josh Ostick and Jacob Bonner, the top 5. Jacob led the race momentarily until William Humphrey snipped him up the inside of P6, and then he wasn't able to hang on, but a top 5 finish for the new KXR Racing team is nothing to snap at. And then it's Thomas Pugh and Marius Hibmer ahead of Jeff Hibbert in P8, with Adam Atherton and Jacob Jenner rounding out the top 10. Yannis Olber with a late drive-through is fighting for the top 5 for the most of that race. In the end, though, P11 is the best that he can get. And then it's Laurent Den Uden, in the top 12, ahead of Jeremy Ulemans and Charles Wimbley, who finished a lap down, but will still score points.
Over in the AMS for the GT4s, it was Niels Kula, the Latvian driver, in the 204. He picked up his 2nd win of the season, and by virtue, I do believe, will be retaking his championship lead at the top of the tree. So he'll be happy after race number 2 and will be in a good position, part of that reverse grid for race number 3. John Ludbrook with P2 ahead of Luke Bailey, who finished in 3rd. Dennis Curler finished 4th. His great resurgence throughout the field today really being highlighted by that finish, and let's see what he can do in race number 3. Rob Gregg and Robin Earl Brown 5th and 6th. They were pretty close to that front train. Then a little bit of a gap back, not too big, but still significant enough. Andre Muntin was P7 ahead of Joseph Preston, Klaas Vellen and Daniel Poole inside our top 10. Another little gap back to Brandon Smith, who finished in 11th before Liam Fraser, Charlie Stoddard and Matt Stace rounded out our top 14. It was Edward Grove, Dean Sheesby in the top 16 and Reese Kitley, who I do believe is in a TCR, but he finished 8 laps down anyway, so he won't have been finishing the race and was at the back of the field.
Next up then, it's the TCR Pro category, and I'll do my best to make that change for Reese before we get underway for the final round. But at the moment, though, it's Andrew McKinley who crossed the line first, just 1.5 seconds clear of Logan McKenzie, with Jaden Scotton rounding off the podium in that class. Anthony Hilton and Max Nevincharney round off the top 5, ahead of Kevin Marshallsay and Keith Calhoun, who've shared the finish line in both of those races so far tonight. Branko Kapovic is next for LS Racing, ahead of James Howarth and Scott Malcolm in the top 10. Jay Corley next to finish, ahead of Mike Nagnon and Sergio Ferreira, who finish 8 laps down and will therefore not score any points in that one.
Yeah, sadly for him, we'll see what he can do in race 3. In the TCR AMS, though, everybody finished the race. All 10 drivers finishing the race, not least Hussein Sarkadesla making it 2 wins from 2 tonight. He was ahead of Rob Smith and Gordon Hales. Of course, Gordon Hales came into tonight as the championship leader. I think Hussein Sarkadesla is going to be giving him a slight run for his money tonight. Andrew Fellows was P4 ahead of Jason Haddington, who finished inside the top 5 after his P10 in race number 1. David Randalls was 6th ahead of Dean Sargent and Martin Kenyon in 7th and in 8th. It was Danny Weir and Steve Rubino in 9th and in 10th, and we'll see what they can do from the back of the grid in race number 3.
Very good. Well, we still have about 30 seconds to go until the end of the warm-up, so I'm just going to make that correction to Mr. Oh, something there. Let me just double check this one. This is the issue when you try to make a correction. Something's happened to the overlay. Let me see if I can fix that momentarily. At least we have a little bit of time before anything else.
We've got loads of time. We've got what? We've got we've got a full formation lap as well. We're going to have 3 long, full formation laps behind the pace car. It'd almost be nice if the pace car could start halfway around the lap. It does in some tracks on iRacing, but here at Road America, we get the joy of having a full lap and a full tour of this track here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Of course, Elkhart Lake, well, Joe continues to make sure everything looks great. Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin, not a million miles away from Green Bay, Wisconsin, who very, very sadly, I have to say, very sadly, got beaten by the Chicago Bears late last night. For anybody that is too bothered about that, devastated for them. Are we back, Joe? I think we've got it right working.
We are back, yes.
Yes, lovely.
So then, no, go on, Dara. Finish.
I was going to say we're in Wisconsin. I'm a proud Chicago Bears fan. I couldn't pass up the opportunity to make a slight there.
Slight dig. Well, I'm not sure there'll be that many of the opposition in chat tonight or watching on. So I think you're kind of safe with that one. I think you might, maybe, Premier League references might rattle a few feathers, but that should be okay. Charles Wimbley has just said something, a bear emoji and then a down arrow. Now, I'm not sure what that means.
Down.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a chant that they have. Not quite the Premier League songs that you can hear.
Well, I know, let's not talk too much about the, let's not go there. But as if on cue, Robin O'Brown's taken us away from that reference and now leads us around for the final of our 3 formation laps. Let's quickly take a look at the grid ahead of the final round, and we can just run down that top 15, and immediately looking for Dennis Curler, who was well within the top 15. So then, it's Robin O'Brown and Rob Gregg sharing the front row in the AM class. Then it's Adam Atherton and Jeff Hibbert, who are the first of our GT4 Pro drivers to cross the line. And then it's Dennis Curler and Luke Bailey starting ahead of John Ludbrook and Nils Kuller. Marius Himber and Thomas Pugh ahead of Jacob Bonner and Josh Ostick, Josh Parra, Ben Smith, and of course William Humphrey, the top 15. Andrea Moonteam will start where he finished, and it's a job even harder this time for the likes of Smith and Humphrey. He managed to go from pole to first, from 10th to first. Do you think he can go from 15th to first this time, Dara?
I think you'd be hard pressed to bet against him, but at the same time, that's going to be quite some time, especially with the kind of frantic fighting that we saw at the front of the field in race number 2 in that GT4 AM category. Those guys are going to be in front of him now, so a little bit of work to do. That's going to be tricky to negotiate, but I mean, he's got 2 wins from 2 tonight. He's trying to close in on that championship lead himself, and Ben Smith pulling away from the rest for the time being. I think he'd like to get those points heavily on the board, but like Robin O'Brown, not the easiest of nights so far. I think Robin would love to get a win. Struggled in race number 1, just about getting into that reverse grid in race number 2, and falling quite a ways off the back of Nils Kuller now.
Yeah, he'll be very satisfied to have managed to get himself, as you say, into that reverse grid. Really bodes well. Not going to get caught up in any drama, fingers crossed, having only 1 car ahead of him at the start. And you're right, you wouldn't bet against Humphrey to do it again. However, around this kind of circuit with more cars to pass, might find himself getting caught up in a little bit more drama than what he was used to. And interestingly, it's Jeff Hibbert who hasn't really been in the offing toward the front of that class. He's currently, well, he came into tonight in P10 in the standings after a P9 and a P12 finish last time out. So somewhat unfamiliar turf for him to lead the way alongside Adam Atherton, who's got a bit more familiarity toward the front of the grid, finishing in the top 5 in both of the races this time last week. But again, handing the start procedure, for instance, over to one of the AM drivers is something that we haven't seen so far this season, and I'm sure that Robin will know exactly what to do. He's been with us for long enough, but it's definitely a little bit of pressure on his shoulders. And then, looking down the order, Luke Bailey, Dennis Curler, John Lubbock and Liz Culler, P5 to P8 in the field, will be 4 of the AM drivers sharing the circuit. And then we have that lovely pack from P9 all the way down to P15. Hibner, Pugh, Ostick, Bonner, Smith, Sparrow and Humphrey, who will be leading, who will be starting the race, fighting out for that podium place. But lots of good groups in the same class, not mixing it about too much amongst the classes. And then finally, the TCR Pro guys, P1 through P5, are all pro drivers. So, not too much interclass battling going on at the start of the race, but might lead to a few more incidents as the guys don't want to let the opposition through too soon, too early. The pace car is in then for the final time tonight, and we hand it over to Mr. Robin Noel Brown to get us underway. We see him once again, the man with the green flag. He will drop the flag, and he's gone early. Robin Noel Brown already sets away, and the pack will come flying through for the final time tonight. He'll lead them all the way down the hill into the first braking zone. He's got ahead. Dennis Curler dashing over to the inside line, trying to pick out a braking point. It's Noel Brown leading Atherton, leading Greg, and then Hibbert single file all the way down until P8 on the circuit. That's Nils Culler going side by side with Marius Hibner. Some of the pro guys already getting up past our pack of AMs, and it's Thomas Pugh who's next to come through. Let's watch as they follow on through turn 2 and hope that the TCR drivers can do the same.
Yeah, let's see. It's going to be tricky though as they work their way towards turn number 5. Edward Grove and everybody flying their way through side-by-side action towards turn number 5. Thomas Pugh though is going to be looking to try and make some moves at the front of the field. He's going to be struggling though as everybody makes their way into turn number 5. Too wide. A couple of late sends actually in the foreground there at the front of the TCR or the back of the GT4s. A little bit of battling going on in this TCR Pro category. James Hayworth, one of those drivers involved in some of the bigger battling. This is Jeff Hibbert though at the front of the field, P2 in class, P4 on the road, and with some very fast drivers up behind, but most of them actually right at the front of the field, AM drivers, not necessarily pro.
Yeah, crucial as well for Robin Noel Brown. Adam Atherton has got himself ahead, so it's 2 of our class leaders who lead the field on the opening lap, and he's got himself ahead of Rob Gregg, which is not the start that Rob would have wanted, but now all these cars will come steaming once again over the camera, heading down toward turn 12. And I mean, I must say, I made it myself, but it's a lovely shot as you see all the cars steaming their way over, and we get a good shot here of Atherton putting a move on the race leader. Robin's not going to do too much to defend against that one, wants to optimise his race time, and if Adam's quicker, then it's best to let him through. That will open the eyes of Rob Gregg a little bit in behind to see his championship rival now cleanly in front of him. He's got clean air to set after him. Let's see how Adam gets on. William Humphrey already up to P8, so he's had a mega start, up 7 places already. And Dennis Curler, he's lost out and is under pressure here on the inside from Marius Simba out of class.
Yeah, and Hibner is looking to try and make a couple of moves in his Aston Martin car and get away from these AM drivers. He's doing quite well in the pro class. Let's see if he can hammer home some of this advantage. Nearly 3 wide into someone. Actually, it will be 3 wide into the opening corner. That's going to be very bold on the inside line from Ben Smith. Can he make this work? Yes, he can, just about. They're still going to be side by side on the exit of the corner, though. This is some great racing between the two of them. We've got Yannis Silver in the back of this battle as well. Yeah, he's going to go down the inside. He's going to make that work. There's somehow no contact between these guys as they work their way through, and they're side by side in behind as well. This is crazy.
Here come the TCRs through the same corner, not quite 3 wide, but all the guys doing very well to get them through. It's Logan McKenzie leads Andrew McKinley. There's been a change of position, another 3 wide there. That's the 2-2-3 machine. It's Matt Stace who's mixing it in with those TCR drivers. Remember, the iRacing heat system can't split these categories at the race start, so any of the GT4s who have a disaster in the earlier rounds will start side by side with one of the TCRs out of their category. Same can't be said for qualifying. We do split the cars at the start of heat 1, but by the time we reach the second and third heats, it can be really difficult for some of these GT4s to carve their way through the TCRs in the early stages. We saw that exactly there from Matt Stace, who got around the outside. He has got himself up a few positions. And now, let's see, it's Hussein Sarakadesla who once again leads the way, and he's pretty clear. Let me bring the timing tower up again, sorry. Leads the way quite swiftly, 1.1 seconds already clear of Rob Smith in the background. But back toward the front, it's Alan Atherton who is getting clear of Robin Noah Brown, who's going to be under pressure from Rob Gregg, and Dennis Curler has got himself past Jeff Hibbert. That's an AM driver, stepping one up on the Pro driver.
Yeah, and Kohler looking to try and get all the way back to the front of the field with a win. I think we saw something similar from Bas Schilskere last season in the GT4s at Road Atlanta. He started right at the back of the field and worked his way forward, and I think he won race 3 of the evening. And mind you, that was round 2 of the season, as is tonight. So Kohler hoping to replicate a little bit of ESR history tonight. He's got to get through on Rob Gregg and Robin L. Brown first, though. But really, really confident moves being made by him so far. This is Rob Gregg, and this is Marius Hibber. In fact, it's not. It's William Humphrey, who's already up into P2. Fastest lap time from Humphrey of 15.8. No one going faster than him on the last lap. Outside line at turn 1. We've not seen it work for many drivers, but he's going to make it work for him. And he's now only got one driver between himself and 3 wins from 3 nights.
Yeah, brilliant move around the outside by Mr. Humphrey. I expected nothing less, to be quite frank. There's a bit of a battle going on here between, this is Clas Wellen, Liam Fraser, Luke Bailey and Joe Sparrow, the driver at the back, who's going to get the run. It's a little bit wide there by Luke Bailey, who drops 1 position to Sparrow. He's in a bit of a sandwich at the moment. P10 in the Pro class, battling with 6, 7, 8 and 9 in the AM class, and he sees that's Liam Fraser and Clas Wellen in the 2 Mercedes GT4 machines ahead. Sparrow taking quite an inside line there compared to what you actually have to do. He wasn't challenged around the outside, I don't believe, by Bailey, but nonetheless sitting pretty where he is at the moment. He can see his fellow pro drivers just breaking away in the distance there as they head round the right-hander, but at the moment not looking too bad for the drivers toward the front of the pack. And here's a move by James Howarth, who's looking to get himself up the inside of Max Nevincharny, and he has stuck his nose up there. So many Hondas sharing this part of the circuit. That's Martin Kenyon looking to get past Malcolm Scott there, and I think he has got that one done. However, he's going to be on the outside line through turn 8.
Yeah, let's see if it's going to work out for Scott Malcolm on the inside line. I think it will. Just about squeezing out Martin Kenyon as they work their way down in towards the carousel. Moves being made all over the road. You can see, I think it was Jacob Bonner getting past Jeff Hibbert in the GT4 Pros. Another couple of moves happening in the TCR AMs as well. It really has been a frantic evening's worth of racing. But these evenings, where there's 150 points up for grabs, can be so crucial, because you don't want to have to drop one of these races when you've got 4 weeks in the season where only 100 points can be won. So these are really critical to pick up as many points as you possibly can. Don't want to be missing out on the opportunities that you're being afforded, as Clas Wellen isn't going to be missing out on an opportunity to go for P6. Luke Bailey trying to defend though, and this is going to get tight. Look at the run that Luke Bailey's got.
Oh, that's very tight indeed, and he's been forced off the circuit ever so slightly there. I think that's Clas Wellen in the blue Mercedes. Sparrow comes over and gives him a little nudge for good measure. It looked as though he was going to get the run on Liam Fraser, who's the lead Mercedes. Clas had something else to say about that. It is Sparrow up the inside. He got a great run out of the final corner, makes that move stick, getting in the way of the AM drivers, which they might not be best pleased about. Is Luke going to think about it here? He's got his teammate of Charlie Stothard who's going to be gaining. Let's see, on Charlie's perspective, he's going to get the run on Klaasvellen here, and it could be 2 of the KXR Racing drivers ahead of the blue Mercedes by the time we reach the braking zone at turn 5. Let's watch on and see what Charlie can do. Is he going to defend Klaas? Is he going to lunge him? Yes, he is, and he's momentarily disconnecting here, and he's got himself through, even on his teammate there. He dived 2 of them. Very late send. I'm going to have to cut away because he's disconnecting, but very, very late send on 2 machines there, but he has got the move stuck. Not on his teammate, just on Klaasvellen, and he drops 3 places in 5 corners there.
Yeah, Klaasvellen with a couple of difficult moments, but let's see if he can recover in the final 12 minutes of this race. John Ludbrook looking to try and keep himself nice and close on the back of his battle to try and get into the podium in the GT4 amps, and that's not quite a fellow competitor. I think that's actually Josh Ostick, who's P5 in the pro class, who is sitting just in front of a real mix of pros and amps at the front of this field. The top 9 consist of 4 amps and 5 pros, which really show you how varied it can be. McKinley, though, looking for three wins on the evening. McKinsey, though, looking to try and get himself back to the top step of the podium and get his 3rd win of the season after his double last week.
Yeah, it's one of the closest battles that we've seen in the TCR so far tonight. Sarek Adesla doing not as well as he has done, but he's nearly 2 seconds clear of Gordon Hales. Those 2 will be going toe-to-toe. He's got Rob Smith for company in behind. It's had an incident ahead. I heard a little bit of metal. I think someone may have just gone off the circuit. It might have been the BMW of Charles Wimbley. Not so sure, but let's see as these guys head around the final corner now. Is Andrew McKinley going to be able to set up a run on the Hyundai as they head down the pit straight? The cluster of 4 cars ahead. Let's ride on board with the Honda as he heads up and over the crest. This will be commencing onto the 4th lap of the race. Toward the front, Adam Atherton is actually under pressure. Half a second separating him and Robin Noah Brown, and William Humphrey just a second now off the back of the race lead. So 3 cars battling for the front of the field. Robin Noah Brown doing pretty well at the moment to stay clear of Dennis Curler. That's nearly 5 seconds now, so Robin ought to be careful not to do too much when trying to defend against these guys, but all going well at the moment. Here is a great pack. Let's cut to these guys and see as James Howarth leads Jaden Scott and Kevin Marshallsay and Max Nevin Charney for the top 4 in the TCR Pro category, and a little bit of a gap ahead to Hilton, but a big train going on here, and anything can happen. The lead PG tips machine of James Howarth has his mirror filled by his fellow TCR drivers.
Yeah, this really is an important stage of the race now. We've not got too many laps left to run, but these guys so tightly packed together, and Kevin Marshallsay looking for some extra points in his challenge tonight. Not had the easiest of evenings, has Kevin Marshallsay. He is still, though, kicking around inside the top 10 in the championship. Wouldn't mind getting himself over that 100-point threshold, which he is on course to doing so far. Jaden Scott in P5 actually looking like he's going to miss out on the podium for the first time this season. Coming into this race, Scott and McKinsey are tied on points after McKinsey's not a perfect evening so far. So Jaden Scotton really in the hunt, but just a little bit further back. For Andrew McKinley to have no points in race number 1 to going for what looks like could be 150 would shoot him up the championship order, likely into the top, well, at least top 5, maybe even top 3, after only scoring in 1 of our 2 rounds so far. And when drop rounds are applied, those drivers will fall even further behind. So great evening so far for Andrew McKinley.
Yeah, back at the front of the field. Humphrey about to get the job done on his out-of-class rival here. Robin still leading the way. That's Marius Hibmer in the Aston Martin in behind. After him is Dennis Curler in the pink Mercedes, just coming into the picture there at the top of the screen. So Robin will be aware of Dennis being there. Doesn't want to get caught up with Marius. He allowed Will to go through, and let's see. It's only going to be a matter of time before William gets himself on the back of the Mercedes 346 of Atherton. 2 seconds at the moment. Let's keep our eyes on that. I do want to take another look at these guys. Gordon Hales right on the gearbox of Sarek Adesla. Wants to do everything he can to prevent Hussein from getting 3 wins from 3. It was such a rarity to see. Is he going to make a move up the inside? Thinks about it, fills his right hand mirror, backs out by the time they come to turn into that corner. But yeah, it used to be such a rarity that we saw the same driver getting 3 class wins. I remember Mr. Bostock was the first to do it back around Brands Hatch in the TCR days. Was it James Howarth last season who managed it in the GT4 AM class? You might correct me on that one, Dara, but one person definitely did it by the end of last season, and already we could be seeing Humphrey on for it, we could be seeing Sarika Desla on for it tonight, and we're only 2 rounds into the season.
Yeah, I'm going to check that one for you actually, because I think that rings a bell. But it very much was hard to come by last season. We didn't really see much of it with drivers going 3 from 3 in a single evening. I don't think we saw it at all in the elite class. In the Premier class, we didn't see it either. So it would go to the Evo class, and in fact, we did see it, and it was James Hayworth. The Red Bull Ring last season in the Evo class. He only managed to get P6 in the championship, but he got the 3 wins in a row. The Red Bull Ring. So it only happened once last season in all 3 categories. Are we heading for 2 in the first, in the first round of 3 races of the season?
We can't keep anything sacred, can we? For the sake of the championship, Gordon, please get past Sarika Desla, just so that we can say no one's been able to do it at the moment. And the gap is still there, actually. It was just under 2 seconds on the last lap. Humphreys brought probably the best part of 7 tenths out of Atherton. I must say, less than 6 minutes to go. By the time Humphrey catches up here, Adam could put on a bit of a defence to try and win the race. So it's still all to play for, and it's not guaranteed. So let's keep our eyes on those 2 battles. And Gordon really on the back of Sarika Desla here. Let's ride on board. He's in a little bit of a slipstream here, gaining ever so slightly. Huss has positioned his car in the middle of the track, not to make it easy for him to guess either which way. Defends down the middle nicely, doesn't compromise his entry too much, the number 8. Gordon looks to get a good exit, and he has done. The South African driver really getting all over the back here, but wants to bide his time. If you can stay behind him until the last couple of laps, make the move done, and have just a couple of corners to defend, then it might be the best way to try to win this race. And I'm sure he'll be more than aware that he came into tonight leading the championship, and as things stand, Hussein may well have taken that off him, so Gordon will not want him to extend that margin any more than he can allow. Here's a GT4 coming into picture. Let's hope it doesn't hold Gordon up too much. He's got a little bit of a wobble on there, the Mercedes, as he braked very tight on that inside line. That's not what we want to see for Gordon's sake. Let's hope that Mercedes gets himself past Sarika Desla soon, so that this battle can continue. His 2 GT4 Porsches, though, going down the back section of the track. It's Yannis Aubert, currently in P5 in the Pro Class, getting himself past the current podium sitter, Nils Kuller, in that 204 machine. Not much of a defence as Yannis stepped up the inside. Fingers crossed he keeps the incident count down, doesn't find himself getting another drive-through. Otherwise, it'll be a bit of an unfortunate night for Mr. Aubert.
Yeah, it's just been one of those, I think, for Yannis. We know his quality, we know how good he can be, but it's all been compounded from that start, hasn't it? Where he went around at turn number 1 on the opening of the opening race. So just trying to recover to the top 4, and he's run on the back of Ben Smith, who's following with Dennis Curler. So these 2 could come together if it goes slightly right. Curler, though, trying to get towards the front of the field in his own race. 2 laps to go for all of these guys as they fly through turn 1. A mix of pros and ans in the GT4s. It's almost like they're coming through the Sahara with the amount of smoke. Inside for Yannis. That's bold and brave. He's going to get it done, though. And without any contact at all. That's a fantastic move by the German on his fellow countryman. Yeah, and in that, he's allowed Nils Kuller, Curler's rival, to step up on the outside line. What will be the outside line by the time we reach the corner? Is Nils going to think about it on Aubert here? Or is he better off? Oh, Curler's going to maybe think about it. No, he's backed out. This is a great battle that Yannis has just brought back to life. It's Curler now on the inside. Nils maybe not going to be able to make that move count. He looked like he had a great run out of the banking there, down toward 5. But in the end, Curler has defended that position very well, diving down the inside, making the move stick. And Nils Kuller is going to have to do that on a different occasion at the moment. Not able to get through. William Humphrey has taken the lead of the race. Let's quickly go back and see how he got that one done. He's coming out now down toward turn 8. It's going to be a late move on the brakes in Humphrey style. Stands it up the inside.
Not much of a defence there by Atherton. Lets Humphrey through, and it looks like, obviously mistake aside, we could have that hat-trick of victories in the second round, which, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, William Humphrey just stamping his authority. I think trying to replicate the success he had last season, he's just going for it yet again. He got unlucky in the second race last week, didn't he? At Zolder, a little bit of contact meant that he had to fight his way through the field in the second half an hour, wasn't able to pick up the win. But apart from that, he's been perfect. Won the opening race at Zolder, is on for going 3 for 3 here, and looking like he's going to extend his championship lead. Well, I say extend his championship lead, he's not even in the championship lead, to try and get himself close to the championship lead, because Ben Smith is currently in the championship lead after getting 1 win and 3 second places. That consistency is going to keep him there if things are to stay as they are. William Humphrey, even if he wins 4 from 5, may not be leading the championship. It just seems incredible as we see the battle for the lead in the TCR Pros. Yeah,
and I was just about to say, aside from the AM class, well, even the AM class, the defence between Curler and Kula, which is a bit of a tongue twister to get out, is 0.3 of a second. The lead at the front of the Pro class is 0.3 of a second, 0.2 of a second, and 0.3 of a second. So the lead in every single class, well, at least for the podium, let's say, excluding the M class, is lightning at the moment with just 1 minute to go. So Humphrey will have commenced his final lap. We can see the man in the bridge waving the white flag. So this will be the final lap of the session tonight. And as I said, we've got positions up and down the grid for podiums and for race wins. It's about to get spicy. I think we'll see a few late sends from a few of these guys. Gordon Hales has reduced that margin from 7 down to 3/10. He'll fancy sticking one at the inside, I'm sure, at Sarah Kadesla in the next opportunity. I wish we could go split screen because we need to have all these battles on at the same time, but I'll do my best to catch anybody gaining, especially toward the front of the field. McKinley, McKenzie, Humphrey and Atherton, and then it's Sarah Kadesla and Hales, the final lap here at Road America.
Yeah, McKinsey outside line down at turn 5. Final trip here as we today, even as we work our way into this tricky left hand, and McKinsey trying to go all the way around the outside in his home race, not going to be able to find anything there, and it will still be Andrew McKinley who leads the field in towards turn 6. Sarah Cadesta is going to defend into turn 5 against Gordon Hales, but those battles I don't think will really kick into life until they reach Canada Corner. In the meantime, though, I think Adam Atherton's last chance against William Humphrey is just about to arrive, unless they've already worked their way through Canada Corner, because Atherton's on the back, but he may not be close enough as they approach the final couple of turns.
Yeah, he has. William Humphrey is about to cross the line. We'll cut to that briefly and wave him through as he does complete the hat-trick of race victories, maximum points. Great return for Mr. Humphrey at the moment as things stand, but I do not want to miss this. Let's go back to McKinley and Mackenzie. It's going to be the final run here for Logan as he's gone off the circuit ever so slightly. That's not going to do his chances any favours. And let's see if Gordon, does he have the same opportunity? Just about. Keeps on the circuit and he's got a decent chance here. It'll be optimistic from back there. He is gaining. Is he going to send one here? Let's wait and see. No, he thinks better of it sensibly. Should have really come back over to the outside line. He's kind of messed up the exit a little bit. So has Hussein. Who's that in the wall? That's a BMW in the wall. That's Joseph Preston, who's out right toward the end of the race. I don't think it's going to be enough for Gordon here to take that victory. No, it's not, but he might have a run here. I'm not going to cut away. I was going to cut away. Is it going to be enough? I don't think so.
No, it's going to get close, but it's just not going to be close enough. What's the gap going to be? What, 2/10 as they cross the line? Yeah. Maybe a 1/10.5? What's it going to be? If it updates, we'll stay at 4:44. I think it was a little bit closer than that in the end, but yeah, incredibly close. Gordon Hales, though, coming up just short. Yeah, there you go. Nothing to between them there.
Yeah, absolutely not. Well, sorry that I didn't cover everybody crossing the line, but I think for the potential of getting a race leading overtake was worth all of that. But in the end, what a great feature race that was. I mean, it's been a great night, all in all, and as we said at the start of the broadcast hour, in the first few sentences, it was not the chaos that we saw last week, which is great to see.
Yeah, really impressive stuff from a lot of these guys. I mean, we had a little bit of drama on the opening lap in race 1, but since then, we've had some really clean racing. I think in race 2, we had 1 DNF, across the entire field of 50 odd drivers. Oh no, we had 3, but that's 3 DNFs out of what, 54, which is incredible, really, when you think about it, with the close proximity of the racing, with the volume of cars in the circuit. And I think the drivers, really did themselves proud tonight.
Absolutely did. And as we said, we were hoping, maybe not hoping, but we were optimistic that we weren't going to have 2 hat-trick sitters tonight, but that's exactly what we've got. We're going to run through the standings in just a moment, but congratulations to Humphrey and Sarika Desler on that. That's not an easy thing to do in any domain, especially not motor racing around a circuit like this one, but they've done it. They've had a flawless evening, and the 2 of them can be thoroughly satisfied with that. So then let's take a look at the race results, starting once again with the GT4 Pro Class. As we've just said, William Humphrey, not much needs to be said about this man. He had a stellar season last time out in the GT4 Mercedes. It looks as though he's on pace to do the same thing this time in the Porsche. He rounds off a great night, a hat-trick of victories, and a special note to Adam Atherton, who led well from the start, finished just 7/10 behind William in the end, which is something that no other driver has been able to say tonight. So congratulations to Mr. Atherton. In behind him, it was Mario Sidmer, who gets himself another podium this season ahead of Ben Smith and Yannis Olbert in the top 5. Thomas Pugh and Josh Ostick ahead of Joe Sparrow, once again inside the top 8, with Jeff Hibbert and Jacob Jenner running out the top 10. Jacob Bonner, Laurent Den Uden ahead of Charles Wimberley, the last of the finishers, with Jeremy Ulemans finishing 9 laps down, who will not score points.
Move on to the GT4 AM category, and it was Robin Earl Brown who won out. He had some struggles in race number 1 this evening, but was able to rectify them for race number 3, and ends up coming out on top. Fantastic work from him. And I'm sure he'll be delighted to get another win for his championship aspirations, which will still continue. Dennis Kerr, what a way for him to end out the day. Started right at the back of the field, worked his way all the way through, finishes up in P2. It wasn't quite 3 from 3 for Niels Kuhler, though. He finished in P3, not too far behind Dennis Kerr, but the Latvian driver will have to settle for the bottom step of the podium. Liam Fraser and John Ludbrook, 4th and 5th. Ludbrook actually took home quite a nice little battle with himself and Luke Bailey. Barely anything to put those 2. Klaas Vellen finished in P7 with Charlie Stossard, Edward Grobe and Daniel Poole rounding out our top 10. Dean Sheesby and Rob Gregg were in the top 12 with Matt Stace and Andre Mintian on the lead lap. Joseph Preston and Brandon Smith were a lap down, but should still pick up their points. But Fareez Kitley, again, regardless of whatever class he was in, was 9 laps down, and he will not be scoring any points at all tonight.
Yeah, well, I did change that. It's a shame that it hasn't updated, but we can make those adjustments in later in due course. Dara, just a slight connection issue, I think, for you there, just in case there's anything that you could do. We can still hear you. It's just a little bit stuttery. For the TCR Pro Class, then, it's Andrew McKinley who fends away Logan McKenzie in the end by just 0.6 of a second to take another win in the TCR Pro category. The pair of them finished quite a way, 7 seconds ahead of Anthony Hilton, who will do well toward the front of that field. James Howarth and Jaden Scotton round out the top 5 ahead of Max Nevincharny, Branko Kapovic and Scott Malcolm, the top 8 ahead of Kevin Marshall, the last guy to finish in and around his fellow drivers. Keith Calhoun will probably score points if he crossed the checker flag, which I think he may or may not have. He will score points being 3 laps down. However, Jay Corley, Mike Nagnon and Sergio Ferreira once again will not score points, having finished 9 laps down and picking up damage at the very start of the race.
And to round us all off, we'll get to our TCR AMs, and it's the same Sarika Desler who won the race by the barest of margins, 0.127 of a second ahead of the South African of Gordon Hales. It was Rob Smith and Martin Kenyon 3rd and 4th, with Danny Weir inside the top 5. Close top 5, 12 seconds splitting them, and 13 seconds between our top 6, with Jason Haddington finishing there. Steve Rubino and Dean Sargent finished the race on the lead lap. For Andrew Fellows, he was a lap down. For David Randall, sadly, he didn't get much further than the start. I don't think he'll be picking up any points from this race, but we'll see how he does in the coming weeks.
Very, very good, and a good summary of the race recap there. So, Dara, as always, we can begin to bring in some of the drivers, and I think we have Mr. William Humphrey waiting for us. So that is a good one to start with, I think.
Yeah, I agree. 3 wins from 3 in the GT4 Pro class. William, welcome in. Can you hear us?
Hello.
1 second, William. Just doing the needful here, and then I will get underway. I just need to turn you up ever so slightly, so just give me 1 moment. There we go. So, Will, we were saying just toward the end of the session that there's only been 2 drivers in a Monday night ESR history to get a hat-trick of race victories. You and another driver tonight are the 3rd and 4th to do that. So first of all, congratulations for that. But also, mate, just talk us through that. The opening race for one, because you got away off pole position and you led the whole race.
Yeah, the opening race was kind of a dream, really. I got a really, really nice start, and then I kind of just left Ben and Himba in the dust, but it wasn't without its difficulties. I was pushing quite a lot at the start to get away, but those two are fast when it comes to the start of the race. They just need to work on their endurance, and they're all good.
Yeah, and so then how was it with the reverse grid? Obviously, we were saying how you managed to get right up there, I think into the top, let's say top 5 within the first couple of laps in the second race, but getting yourself past 15 cars in the third race must be a bit of a challenge. I'm sure there wasn't many TCRs in the way, but obviously pretty tricky with a guy of your pace to know exactly how people are going to react. You managed to do it though, and unlike last week, you finished the race with pretty much a clean car.
Yeah, it was a hectic one. That was it's mostly just about survival, as is with most races here, but having the experience of knowing where the car's going to go or where other cars are going to go when overtaking them or when lapping other cars, it really helps, and I feel like that's something that my teammates are missing. But again, it's just mostly just keeping all 4 tires on the road and not getting into any collisions.
Absolutely. And one final one from me. You've obviously moved over to the Porsche, which was probably a wise decision. You did well in the Mercedes last season, but was that a pretty easy shout for you after seeing the dominance of that car this time last season?
Yes. Quite simply.
Simple answer.
But for you, Will, I mean, going into this season, of course, with the success you had last season, how do you feel after the opening 2 rounds? Of course, you had the good result in the opening race at Zolder, and then it didn't quite come off for you in race 2 with a couple of little moments. But with this pace you've shown tonight, does this kind of give you some confidence to try and, wrap this championship up by, mid-February?
I'm gonna certainly try my best, but I don't think it'll come without any flaws. The Zolder was a setback, completely on me. I can take that. I'll definitely try to wrap up as quick as possible, but I'm looking forward to the fight that I'll get.
Yeah, I mean, it went right to the wire, didn't it, last season? So hopefully you're hoping to avoid that. But let's see, because I mean, even with the results you've got, you're still not quite in the championship lead with the result you got. Well, yeah, Ben Smith still has the championship lead after the results tonight by 3 points. Because he had the 1 win, 3 second place, and he got another P4, so he's just about there. But I think you'd surely back yourself at Virginia next week to get there. Is that a track you're looking forward to?
Don't think I've ever driven it in iRacing, so looking forward to the challenge of it. It helps actually, because that means I don't have any former experience with any car, so I can go in there blind with the Porsche. But I'm looking forward to it. I've been told it's quite a fast and twisty track, so hopefully no collisions.
Yeah, it's fast and twisty for sure, Will, but it could be the first race that we have in mixed conditions. So I know you've got some experience in that, but the grass and the banking and as you say, the tight and technical nature of that circuit might be a bit of a tricky one. Maybe you won't find yourself, well, you won't be able to get 3 race victories, but it might not be as as high scoring for you next week. Fingers crossed, of course. But yeah, the weather could really play a part for the first time, obviously. On a Monday night, we've never had a wet race before here.
Yeah, I'm certainly going to try my best to get 3 wins, but I kind of felt that's impossible. So I'll try to get the 2 this time, and watch out for Charlie, because he's going to be really fast there, and actually get some of his advice.
Okay, good notice. Well, good stuff, Will. As always, before we let you go, if there's anybody you'd like to give a shout out to, you can go ahead and do that now.
Good old Dale Williams. He was in the call with me, Jacob, Luke, and Charlie, and he was helping everyone out all the time. Amazing guy, and I cannot reiterate that so much at all.
Good stuff, mate. Well, congratulations once again. You can revel in that for a little while, because not too many people in ESR have done what you've done tonight. So once again, congratulations, and I'm sure I'll speak to you in the midweek, if not next week, when we head to Virginia. So good luck.
Awesome. Thank you, bro.
Cheers, man.
You get to speak to William Humphrey after another incredible evening for him and his championship aspirations. I think I can also see in the chat that we have got another 3-time winner, which I feel like it'd be apt to bring in from the TCR pros, and that is Andrew McKinley. So I'm going to try and drag Andrew in now, see if we can chat to him. Andrew, can you hear us, Andrew?
Yes, I can, mate. Hello.
Good evening, Andrew, mate. Well, first of all, talk us through your race tonight. You had a great battle, particularly in that feature race with Mr. Mackenzie. And just talk us through it in the end. How did it feel? It was looking pretty dicey toward the end.
It was very mental. I didn't expect to be battling Logan, to be honest. He's a quick driver. You can tell by the iRating, but overall, he looks pretty quick, and I wasn't expecting to be matching him at all.
How did you find, obviously with the nature of the circuit, especially that back section, how did you find the traffic coming through? Was that something that was difficult to manage throughout the session? Obviously with the reverse grids and whatnot, it kind of throws a little bit of a spanner in the works. Not so much for you TCR guys, because you tend to start exactly where you finish, but is that something you have to pay particular attention to, or was that something that was pretty easy to manage tonight?
I think it was pretty easy to manage, but also you have to watch out, because it depends what they're actually going to do. If they're going to go for the move or not.
But Andrew, I mean, where do you feel like this pace has come from? Because clearly you said you weren't necessarily expecting to be fighting with Logan. Does this kind of give you an added bit of a boost? Because if you weren't necessarily expecting to be fighting with Logan, yet you've won all 3 races tonight, how does that make you feel? Does that give you any kind of confidence boost going into the next few rounds?
That's definitely given me a big boost. I mean, I've compared to Sergio, one of my teammates, he's quick, and I was close to his pace, and I thought, right, I might be close for him. I wasn't being close to Logan at all, because I felt like he was just going to go off into the distance. But I'm very, very happy with that.
Yeah, I was say, because he didn't go off in the distance. I mean, your pace was really, really excellent tonight. Of course, you weren't here last week, so, in the long term, you're likely going to have to drop that round. But if you're picking up 150 points, I don't think there's going to be too much to worry about. It's great to have you and the team involved, of course. Looking forward to next week, specifically Virginia Raceway. It's not the most used circuit. Is it one that you're familiar with?
I am familiar with the track, yes.
What are you looking forward to?
Definitely changeable conditions is what's going to be happening next round, so let's see what it comes up with.
Good stuff. Yeah, exactly. It's the changeable conditions is something that I mentioned in the previous interview, something that we haven't had on a Monday night just yet, so it'll be interesting, especially Virginia, the nature of that circuit, something that could be quite tricky for the drivers to get a grips with. But I appreciate you joining us, Andrew, as always. Nice to speak to you for the first time, and I always like to give the guys an opportunity to give anybody a shout out. If you have anyone watching or part of your team or whatever, if you'd like to do that, you can do that now.
Well, I'll say shout out to all the guys from my team who have done a decent job during that race, but also the people that were watching on standby, and shout out to them mainly.
Good stuff, mate. Well, I appreciate that nonetheless, and thank you for joining us. Good luck next week, and we might speak to you in the near future.
Thank you. See you later.
Great to speak then to Andrew McKinley after his excellent performance tonight. Next, we've got a couple more drivers we can drag in. We're going to drag in Adam Atherton from the GT4 Pro class. Finished P2 in race number 3. Nearly got the win. But Adam joins us now. Adam, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Good evening.
Good evening, Adam, mate. Well, first of all, welcome to the booth, and glad that you could join us. I just want to focus mostly on that last race where you found yourself right toward the front of the pack, getting things underway. You did manage to, hang on for quite some time as Humphrey made his way through the pack. When he made that overtake, it didn't look like there was too much of a defence from you. So were you just happy with the points in P2, knowing that it would be potentially a little bit risky to try and keep William behind him, knowing the pace that he's got?
Yeah, I think when William crossed that gap so quickly, and I could see Marius was only 2 seconds behind, I wasn't going to fight him too hard. I I think should have probably defended a bit better on there, but if we would have fought for 2-3 corners, then it brings Marius into the play. So I think I just went for the points in the end.
That's a very, very wise thing to do, mate. Good idea.
Yeah, and for you, Adam, I mean, it's still a decent evening's worth of racing for you. Moving up towards the top 6 in the championship, actually top 5. You're tied with points with Yanis for 5th after tonight's race. You're looking pretty competitive in terms of your pace. You work your way back through the field again tonight. Do you think that can kind of push you forward in the next couple of weeks at Virginia and Long Beach? Two very different circuits.
Yeah, I do like Long Beach, so that'll be another track I'm really looking forward to. I thought, well, it was just a shame for race 1 because, yeah, it was just a complete Horlicks for race 1. And, yeah, I think I probably would have had 3 top 10s there if I'd not messed up race 1. So hopefully at Long Beach we get a better result in race 1, which doesn't screw up my grid for race 2.
Yeah, good stuff, mate. And just one quick word on the Mercedes, if you don't mind. Obviously, we saw last season in the GT4s, I'm not sure if you're aware, we had a lot of Porsche dominance, which I think is safe to say it's probably the most, balanced car that a lot of people enjoy driving. But you're right up there at the front, particularly with Marius as well, actually, in the Aston Martin. But talk us through the decision to drive the Mercedes. Is that your preference? Do you like driving the Mercedes? Do you like the way it handles? Or did you just fancy maybe something different if you know that a lot of these guys were going to be in the Porsche?
No, I just like driving a Mercedes, just what I'm comfortable in. And I think whatever you're comfortable in, you're fastest in. So I could see, I think it was William in the GT4 Championship last year ran the Mercedes, so it's very capable of running out front. So I think it's just a comfort thing, really. And I think, the more comfortable you are with the car, the faster you are.
That's such a good way to look at it, mate, and I'm sure you're totally right. So thank you for joining us, and I always give the guys an opportunity for a shout out at the end of the interview. So if you have anyone that you'd like to do that for, you can do that now. Yeah,
just everyone at Ignium that have made me feel so welcome in the past few months. So yeah, just a shout out to those guys. Thank you very much.
Very good, Adam, mate. Well, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll speak to you again in the next couple of weeks, and good luck in the preparation for another tricky circuit this time next week.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Adam, great to speak to him after his good result this week. We're going to move straight on. We can move on to the driver we were talking about, having had that previous record of having 3 wins in one race, James Hayworth. We'll bring him in. Welcome in, James. Can you hear us?
I can indeed. How are you?
Well, welcome back into the booth, James, and good to speak to you once again. He got himself a decent position there in the final feature race, a little bit far off the top 3 with a couple of the TCR guys ahead of you, but all in all, how did you find that one tonight?
Well, the first race I managed, I think I got a P3 or P4 in the first race, so I'm pretty pleased with that. The second race I ended up getting collected on the carousel, which caused me wheel damage. So I had to pit in there, and then I got a little spin with Dean towards the end of that. But the final race went smooth, kept out of trouble, and just playing it safe, really.
Well, we were talking, James, on the broadcast about how last season in the GT4s you were able to win 3 races in a row at the Red Bull Ring in the one evening, and you were the only person to do it last season. Is there any like sour taste in the mouth that it's been done by a couple of people here tonight and it almost joined you on the record?
No, not really. It was like, if you've done it, you've done it. You've clearly shown the pace and patience to get through everybody. So congratulations on them who's done it. It's not an easy thing to achieve, but then they've done it. Well done.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And something tells me next week, with such a tricky circuit, obviously we don't have the same format with us next week, but Virginia, how are you looking forward to that one? Something that ESR hasn't ran in a long time, and in changeable conditions with all that grass and all the banking, it could be really tricky to keep the car on the tarmac. Is that a circuit you're familiar with, or are you going to have to try and put in some practice this week to prepare for that one?
I'm going to have to put in a lot of practice, especially with the changing conditions, because I have not driven TCR in the wet. So I don't know how it handles. So it'll be a learning curve. So let's just hope I get some decent results since I'm now in the top division.
Exactly, mate. Yeah. Well, that was a good finish for you today. I'm sure you'll be there or thereabouts. But yeah, good result, and wish you the best in preparation for next week. So as always, James, as you know, if you'd like to give a shout out to anybody, you can do that now.
Obviously the DXT lot, you yourselves for the great commentary that you managed to do week in, week out. So good, well done on that. And also Laura.
Of course, good stuff, the usual. So very good, James. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, good luck with your preparation. And fingers crossed we see you back in a good position this time next week.
Yeah, take care, boys.
Cheers, mate.
It's James. Great to hear from James after his evening's worth of racing. We're going to jump to another couple of the TCR AMs. We've got a couple of them waiting in the booth, and we're going to jump to Danny Weir next, who picked up a podium this evening. Welcome in, Danny. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you all good.
Good stuff, Danny. Well, first of all, congrats, mate, because that's some good haul of points for the team tonight. As Dara said, a podium earlier on and a top 5 in the feature. Just talk us through how that went, particularly with the GT4s coming through, and it was very, very frantic. If you see the stream back, you'll see we didn't really catch a breath throughout the entire race. So many packs of cars together. How did you find that through what is a pretty tricky circuit?
So, the first race, a big incident on the start-finish. I think you caught all of it. But that kind of screwed me up massively because I was stuck behind a car who was sideways. So by the time I actually got going, I was stock qualified 6th, but I was 19th in my class, so basically last overall. So I kind of thought, okay, that's my race done. And then the heavens sent me a massive crash in the kink, which kind of saved my race. So yeah, unfortunately for others, it kind of did help me. And luckily enough, because I was so far back at that point, I had all of my team going, slow down in the kick. So I went really slow, picked my way through, and then ended up being 6th and just carried on and somehow got up to 3rd. But that was a really good race, the first one. And with the GT4s, it's frustrating. I know that's something we've heard a lot tonight, but I think patience is needed with some of the GT4 drivers where they're just trying to send it. And I get it, they're a lot faster, but we can't take the corners that they can or take the speeds that they can. And they just want to get through. And I understand their rush to get through because we're holding them up. But it's just sometimes patience is probably more better for them. And then is that kind of, so I got taken. I gave too much space somewhat to my GT4s through the follow through, I've been calling it, and that set me into a wall, give me a damage and meatball and all that kind of rubbish. And in the last race, again, another recovery, got up to 5th. Up and down for me, a proper roller coaster kind of race.
But for you, I mean, the aspirations into this season, what are they? Where do you kind of sit? Are you looking to try and aim for the title, top 5 in the championship? Because you're picking up a couple of good results, of course, the podium earlier on. Do you feel like you can kind of keep this up and try and push your way towards maybe even the top 3 in the championship?
Probably not top 3. I think my ideal is my first goal is the team goal. And obviously, we're currently holders of a second place in the team title. Ideally, we want to try and get first, but that's something that we've got to see later on in the season. It's too early to tell at the moment. I do feel comfortable in this Honda and in TCR, so I'm hoping to do better than I did previously, or how I did last season in GT3, for example. So if I can do what I did tonight, get a cheeky podium, top 5 finish, and a 9th, then yeah, that's a good day for me. And then we can judge it nearer the end of the season. If I'm still doing the same thing or better, in races to come, then maybe I've switched my focus from GT3 over to this and focus on this. At the moment, I'm trying to think of GT3 and improve on that. Now I'm back in the Porsche, but it is nice being back in this Honda. It's such a nice car to drive. It's so responsive. You understand it, and yeah, if I can get into top 5, for example, I'd be over the moon.
No, that's a good, definitely a good way to see things, Dara. I think quite a few guys early doors will be prioritising GT3, just with it being sort of the main series, as well, in my opinion at least. But yeah, I think as the season goes on, you'll definitely come to terms with where you are. But as you say, podium, top 5, top 10s, etc. If you can get a mixture of those every week, and that's very good. So looking ahead to next week, we just spoke to James and he was telling us that Virginia is not a circuit that he's very familiar with, especially not in those changeable conditions. So how are you looking forward to that one? I know it can be very tricky at the best of times, never mind when there's rain all over the circuit.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. Is it been the first time we've got rain in
It is.
TCR?
On
So
Monday,
yes, that's
yeah.
going to be interesting to find out, because obviously with these, they're front wheel drive, or certainly the Honda is anyway, front wheel drive car. How that handles in wet weather, that's going to be really interesting. Completely different to what the GT3 does. So use nothing to even like roughly guide on. You just kind of got to get some practice in and see how it kind of goes in practice. But I'm not holding up much expectation. It's just see how it goes and, you know, feel your way through, really. Obviously, these are front wheel drive. They're going to be a lot heavier on the front. The front wheel's doing a lot of steering and power, and then trying to grip with the rain. It's going to be a lot on these cars. So it could be a very mixed race.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. That approach sounds just about spot on, to be honest, mate. So it'll be very interesting, as I say, with all the grass and all the banking. Could be tricky, but fingers crossed we get the good racing action that we saw tonight. So, Danny, as always, mate, pleasure to speak to you. And, of course, shout-out time if you would like to do that.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to change up today. Big shout-out to William Humphrey, smashed it. Even actually Huss as well. Hussein done another triple, I believe. So well done to them too. And there was one more triple today. Who was the other triple?
McKinley, was it?
Yeah, McKinley. Yeah, so well done to all them lads. It's so hard to maintain a race win. To do it 3 times back to back is brilliant. So well done. They're joining a very distinct and rare club. So well done.
Absolutely right.
And thank you again, guys, for commentating as always.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Cheers.
Can't forget you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, man, good stuff. Well, best of luck in all the preparation for all of the DXTs this week, and we'll catch you next week when we head to that tricky circuit. So, congrats again, mate, on some strong results, and we'll hopefully speak to you next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Danny. Great to hear from Danny, as always, about what he's looking forward to this season. And finally, Joe, we can bring into the booth Andrew Fellows for our little weekly update. Andrew, welcome in. Can you hear us, Andrew?
I can. Good evening.
Hi, Andrew, mate. Well, first of all, welcome back into the booth. We didn't catch too much of your action tonight, sadly, so you're going to have to talk us through. I guess first I can ask, were you involved in that kink pile-up, or did you manage to get through it?
No, I was involved.
Sadness.
I missed the start line one. At the beginning of race one, there was I think an incident at the start line. I missed that one. And then going into the kink, there was carnage all around that lap. To be fair, going through the carousel, there was a few people off, and then going into the kink, we could see that there was issues with the GT4s ahead. Both me and Hussein braked. And then come around the corner, we're in the middle of the track because we were near enough side by side. And then next thing I know, I see there's a car straight ahead of me, broadside. I went straight into him. I had nowhere to go, unfortunately, and it happened to be one of my teammates, which is even worse. But I think his race was probably done then anyway. Poor Matt. But yeah, that one wasn't great.
Yeah, but looking forward, I mean, there were lots of different little moments all the way through the evening. If you managed to avoid them, it served you well. But not necessarily the podium. Still a P4 tonight. Does it keep those aspirations up going into the next few weeks? You're still in the top 5 in the championship, going along at quite a nice clip as well. I mean, I know we had the likes of Hurst getting all 3 wins tonight, and a couple of others really performing well. But do you still have that kind of faith that you can get towards that top 3?
I think so, yeah. I mean, like, my pace tonight, I think I qualified P2 or P3. There was like a 10th in it, so the pace was there. I just couldn't, obviously, the second race, I had to come from the back. And I managed to get through to 4th. Great. I had a good battle with Gordon, the 3rd for a little while. Then I made a mistake and he was gone. But I think if that first race I hadn't had that incident, me and Hussein could have had a really good race, because I reckon I had the same pace as him, give or take a couple of tenths. So I think I could have held on to it. potentially. But yeah, it is what it is. Race 2, obviously, come through the pack. That was a good race. Race 3 was over at the end of lap 1. I got punted off unceremoniously at the last corner, straight into the wall, and that was my race done. Once you're a minute behind after a pit stop, not a lot you're doing.
Yeah, mate, and so I mean, it's not so bad, but yeah, as you say, when it ends like that, it's not exactly how you want it to go. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen to you next week. We've been talking to the drivers about the conditions that we're going to find around an already pretty dangerous circuit. So in these cars, particularly in the TCRs, I don't imagine you've done too much wet running in these machines already, have you?
Even to be fair, I think I've done a little bit. So I'll get some practice in this week in the wet. I can't remember what the conditions are going to be like, but I think they're mixed if I remember right. So yeah, it'd be dry and wet running, I suppose, and try and see if I can get some pace in both.
Absolutely right, mate. Well, good stuff, and fingers crossed for slightly more positive results next week for you. Need to see you back on, well, not on the top step necessarily, but definitely toward the front of the class. So fingers crossed you can make that happen in those changeable conditions, as you so rightly say. And as always, Andrew, before we let you go, before we close out, if there's anyone you'd like to give a shout out to, you can go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, thanks obviously to you guys as usual for putting on a great broadcast, and everyone that runs the league. It's a great league to be in, lots of nice friendly drivers. And yeah, to my teammates again, big shout out to Rob and Marius and Jaden. I think they all got podiums today, so really good job for them. And I think Dennis did as well, actually. I think Dennis was P2 in that last race. So yeah, some good flatline results, even if my own weren't so great.
Good stuff, Andrew, mate. Well, as always, good luck in the preparation, the build-up to next week, and we'll see you on track, and we'll probably speak to you once again this time next week. So thanks for joining us, mate, and yeah, we'll catch you soon.
Nice one. Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andrew. Great to have him here in the box. And Joe, I think that's pretty much everybody who wants to have a chat with us.
It is, mate, and I think we went on for that long that we can't have done. It's just that the feature race is finished on the timing sheet here, which has never happened before. But I did start them off all the way down on lap 3, so I'm not quite sure how that's happened. But yeah, potentially we've watched the entire race once again in quarter speed, which is what throws me off. Anyway, been great to speak to all those drivers tonight. Got plenty in the box as always, and good to see from top to bottom really, the likes of Humphrey and Atherton, and then down there with Andrew, who didn't have the best of nights, but shows that he's always up for a good scrap and always comes in to have a chat, no matter what really, so that's always good. I'm going to run over the closing information as always, and then we can take a look at what we've got upcoming over the next couple of weeks. So I'm hopefully going to get better and better at this as the weeks go on, but briefly then, if anyone would like to get involved with what we do here at Evolution Sim Racing, you can do so by scanning the QR code on the left hand side there. That'll take you to our Discord server. From there you can sign up and you can get involved. We have waiting lists for both the Monday and the Thursday sessions for GT4, TCR and GT3, all of which start at 7:30 UK time, qualifying usually getting underway just about 8 PM. But we do have 2 sessions in the midweek, in the off week, should I say. That is a Wednesday night and a Sunday night, and the occasional Saturday session for anybody who wants to race with us. We have over 300 people registered in the Sunday Practice League. The first 60 to arrive will, of course, take those spots. So it's open for everybody if you want to come along and have a go. The server, roughly around 750 people in there at the moment, so a great group of guys and girls who want to talk about racing, share hints, share tips, and obviously go racing in these sessions. So 54 people with us tonight is probably close to the record. I think 57 is the ESR league record, but on a Monday night, 54 is one hell of a turnaround. Dara, I'll give you a moment to summarise tonight if you'd like, and then we can finally come to a close before we meet again on Thursday for the GT3s around the same circuit.
Yeah, I mean, we saw tonight, didn't we, how important these 20-minute races events can be. I mean, 150 points on offer, they can be frantic, they can be hectic, but points really need to be picked up. Drivers don't want to have to be dropping rounds like this, and I think when we see the other 3 rounds with this format later on in the season, it's going to be just as frantic, kind of what we expected. But for those guys that will also race in the GT3s, maybe a little bit of practice, of course, not in the same machinery, but even so, some good racing nows.
Very good, mate. And you're totally right. Well, I'm looking forward to that one. We'll see the pace difference between the GT4s and then the GT3s when we arrive back here on Thursday. Don't forget, we'll be with you at 8 o'clock live as always. So I hope we get just as much action as we've seen on track and in the comments tonight. Great action in chat as always. And thanks to those who've stayed around until the end. So that's us for now, and we'll catch you all same time in a couple of days' time when we meet the GT3s here at Road America for what will be round 3 of the GT3 Season 7 Split B Championship. Hope you all have a good evening, and we'll see you then.